It's the pre-show, everybody. Welcome to our 221,002 Core 2 A+ study group pre-show. We are 10 minutes to go before we get started. Hi, chat room. Hi, everybody. I'm here on time this time. I did not have another event prior to this like I did on Tuesday. So it was just you. Although actually, I did restart my main system. I thought, let's freshen up about top of the hour, about 11 o'clock. I restarted it, not realizing I'd asked it to do an operating system update. I wasn't sure exactly which update it was doing because I've not updated this to the latest Mac OS. And I was thinking as it was going through, we're going to do some updates. I'm thinking, did I tell it to update to Big Sur? Because that would take some time. Fortunately, I did not. Fortunately, it was just a security update. But it took 20 minutes. And you're thinking, well, I have a live stream. What's the alternative? We'll do everything on the laptop. That's our fallback. So we'll do that. The study group is back to 12 noon. It was only on Tuesday that I pushed it to 1 o'clock. So I always keep the latest times in the calendar. So you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and you'll see exactly. Because I don't know, sometimes I might want to do one in late afternoon. Sometimes I might want to do one on a Saturday. I don't know. I keep my options open just to see what's going on. And there's, hello, Mexico. Hello, Minneapolis. Hello, chat room. Hello, Arkansas. Any jokes? We don't do jokes. You may notice here, not a lot of jokes. There's sometimes humor, but no jokes. The calendar shows my time. I always have on there Eastern. It always shows Eastern time. It doesn't on the main screen. I don't think it's doing that on the main Professor Messer screen. Let's do a quick check here as I do that. Because there was an update to the calendar software. Yeah, it doesn't show yet on the main page of professormesser.com. But if you go to professormesser.com/calendar, there is a little time check. It'll show you where you are, and it'll say what time I'm at, and it'll say Eastern. It's all that's there. You'll be able to see all of those. What else we got? I already did the podcast intro. I put the correct year, but I did not put the correct day. So I had to redo them with the correct day. So that's where I am right now. That's my story. Hello, Pensacola, just down the street, just down I-10 from me. Good to see you. Hello, Hawaii. Hello, England. Italy is here. There is all 221,002 today. It's all Core 2 content today. I was working yesterday on creating my Network Plus live stream content for next week, and then I need to do Security Plus because Security Plus is all new. Well, it's mostly new next week because it's shifting to the 601. So I'm getting rid of the 501 content. Fortunately, there's a little bit of overlap, but we work that way. We figure it out. Let's see if my back is going to make it through sitting through all of these for the next 2 hours. We're going to see. A lot of Florida people checking in. Hello, Tampa. Got some folks in San Antonio. Welcome. Couple from San Antonio. Everybody's buddying up. There's Orlando and Baltimore. Welcome. South Africa. Tennessee. Welcome. Good to have you here. Thank you for being here, everybody. The study group is much less interesting when no one arrives. I can tell you from actual experience. Not for my study groups, but for other things I used to do. I used to do corporate events. You always get those corporate mails that say, join our webinar for this corporate thing, which you are in no way interested in seeing. And I know that because I would be tasked with doing the presentation, and there would be 6 people. Which isn't, I got to talk to 6 folks. It wasn't awful, but it's very different than these where we talk in the hundreds of folks. And we kind of have some fun with it, which is kind of nice. Let's see. We got 5 minutes to go. Let's do a quick check. I'll check calendars. That ad going to go away? It's not. In fact, it's going to make me see the ad. We got cameras are good. Recordings are going. You see the Cylons are going down here. I've got Stream is also recording, so that's good. Link to the questions, professormesser.com/QA. And all the links and things you need to see are at professormesser.com/live. It's not white balance. I have an odd color thing with this camera that I got to work on. So the camera behind me, I think, is properly showing the color of my shirt, which I would say is green. I would say that's a greenish color. But the camera that's in front of me, not quite as green. In fact, it was very, very blue. I changed the tint in that camera, but it is spot on with white balance, which is one of the things that's bothering me with this particular camera. There's certain frequencies of colors that it just doesn't quite represent properly, and I haven't figured out why yet. Got to figure that one out. So all of you photographers out there that say, no, you need to turn on the thing with the stuff. Tell me what to turn on the thing with the stuff, and I'll turn it. Because I played around with it for hours. Hours. And I've got the proper white balancing cards. I can dial in the LEDs to exactly the right frequency. I think I'm running at about 5,500. So that's what that is. My silence down here is that cool red light that's rotating. These are, you can't see them, but there's actually two. These are 1U High video recording systems, HyperDecks from Blackmagic Design. And they receive a video signal that I send down to it from this switcher that is seeing really a representation. You can kind of see these two bigger boxes. This one here, which is me, the front of me. You don't see that. That's my preview. And then this one over here is what you do see, which is the program. So I'm sending those two video signals as a copy down to these for the recording. And I use those afterwards. Even though they're video, I strip out the audio, and that's what I use for the podcast. So that's what those are. And when I'm doing recordings of the actual course, when I'm sitting here and going through the tutorials and doing the course, I just turn these on. I talk to the camera, and it records everything. It records my desktop. For that one, I change the preview so it's my desktop. So it records my desktop, and it records my headshot. And then in the editing software, I just bring those two streams together, and that's what you see on the courses. So that's what that's the long story of what that cool red light is. And that is an iPad that's showing the time. This is what I use during the presentation. I'll bring up Keynote here as my preview so that I can see what the next slide is going to be. So I'm really remote controlling this laptop that's next to me on the preview. So I can see, okay, what the next thing is going to be, and I just tap it and it goes to the next slide, which you will see here eventually, or I can slide back to where we were. So it's sort of a kind of a necessary, but I kind of like knowing what the next slide is going to show or what the next build is going to show. And so that's very useful. When I'm recording the courses, I don't use that. And normally the laptop's not even in here. Normally I keep it in the house. It's not in the studio. It's just one of those things I bring in just for a live stream. Because for the course, I just need one screen and a camera, and we just talk. This is a little bit of overkill. What's in this room is a little bit, as you can see, it's a little bit of overkill. But there's a whole process and procedure that is streamlined, and I need just the right equipment to streamline it, or in this particular case, the right equipment to make sure it works. So we upgraded to 4K last year using this equipment. So we really shifted around a lot of things, and it works well. Am I warm? I'm not that warm. I mean, outside it's 55 degrees. So it's not cold outside, but it's not warm outside. But these lights that are in here tend to keep it a nice temperature. They're not very hot, but they're big lights, and they do put off some lighting, some heat in the lighting. So it's not like they're halogen, they're LED lights, but they still get warm. And they're big flat lights. You need to adjust this one. It's a little bit off. And being able to work that. I'm in Florida. So I stream from Florida, and that's where all of this happens. I don't know what time it is. It's about time to get started, isn't it? We're approaching that. I think it's time I probably should figure out if I got all the graphics ready to go. I think I do. Let's get preview ready. Chat room is here. 12 o'clock noon. Let's get Keynote up so you can actually see what's going on. It is ready to go. That's it. Let's do a study group, everybody. Here we go with this. Boom. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2021 Professor Messer Core 2 A+ study group. That is our study group for the 220-1002 certification exam from CompTIA. Thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to do live Q&A with questions that come directly from the Core 2 exam objectives. I'll tell you in a moment how you can get your hands on those objectives. And in the meantime, after that, once we're finished with our Q&A in this first hour, in the second hour, I open up the phone lines and we'll take questions from the chat room, whatever you'd like to do. We can just ask whatever is on your mind. It can be about the exam. It can be about career. It can be about what I'm playing on Xbox right now, which isn't very much because we're in the middle of producing a Security Plus course, but maybe what I wish I was. Maybe that's it. But there's always something going on here, and you're more than welcome to ask about it. Let's talk about what you're able to do today. Maybe I should show you a better picture of where you can go to get the Q&A. There it is. You go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can join us live. Now, this only works if you're watching us live, which is here on the 14th of January, here at 12 noon Eastern time. You can always check our calendar when the next event is going to be at professormesser.com/calendar. This is something that if you're not here live, though, you can still follow along. You just don't need to go to professormesser.com/QA. There's a question waiting for you right there. There's also an app you can get called the Socrative Student App. As an app for your mobile device that you can also follow us on. You need to know the room name if you're going to use that. There's a room you have to go into called Professor Messer, PROFESSORMESSER, Professor Messer. All one word. Make sure you spell it right or there'll be nothing there to talk about. You won't see anything. So we're going to start with a question from last month. This is our rewind question, just to see if you can get into the Q&A, make sure everything is working. The question asks, a Windows administrator would like to test the audio output on a user's laptop. Which of the following would be the best way to perform this test? Would it be MSTSC, DXDiag, MSInfo32, regedit, or services.msc? No answering in the chat room. That's our number one rule. Instead, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer, and we will come back to that question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. We do one of these study groups every month for A+ Core 1, A+ Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. As I mentioned, you can always find out what we're doing at professormesser.com/calendar, which is always a good idea because I sometimes will change up the times or the dates. Check back in. I always keep those calendars up to date, though. There's also videos we're making all the time. I have a very interesting one I'm hoping to come out with in over the next week. So if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, I have a drive that my network-attached storage device failed a week ago, maybe over a week ago at this point. And I had to replace it, but I found some very interesting things inside and in the drive itself. You aren't going to want to miss that, but you only see it if you subscribe. So go to YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube and subscribe to the channel and click the bell. There's also daily pop quiz questions for A+. You can find those on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter or a pretty graphical picture version at professormesser.com/Instagram. I pick out the pictures myself. They're not pictures I took, but I do pick them out myself. So they are curated by yours truly, if nothing else. We're going to talk about the 220-1002 exam today. This is an exam that was released on January the 15th of 2019. That means that we think this exam is probably going to retire somewhere around the July timeframe of 2022. So next calendar year. So you have a year and a half if you're watching this here in January of 2021. Plenty of time to study for this exam. So this is the one you want to study for. Plenty to do there. This is a 90-minute exam. You may get as many as 90 questions on the exam. You might get fewer. You don't have to get 90. That's the maximum, though. And you need to score a 700 on a scale from 100 to 900. Kind of an odd scale, but that's the way they do it. If you have been studying for this exam previously in an older version of the exam, It is the 220-902, for example. 23% of this exam is brand new. So almost a quarter of this is new. So don't use old materials to study for this. Make sure all of your study materials are for the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. That's going to be very important. Today, our questions are going to come right from the Core 2 exam, and those questions will cover operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, operational procedures, and potpourri. Well, maybe not potpourri. We'll throw one of those in there, though. Don't forget that our 220-1002 course is all available for you to watch online every minute of every video. But a number of you have said, I want offline videos. I want audio files that I can listen to in the car and take into the gym. I want practice exams. I want course notes. I want preferred access to this study group so I can ask any question I would like and get preferential treatment. I want your Exam Hacks ebook, which is only available with my Success Bundle. All of these things are bundled together, and it's a great way to support the site, too. You can learn about this. This is my Professor Messer 1002 Success Bundle, my Core 2 Success Bundle. And this is available on my site at professormesser.com/1002success. The Exam Hacks ebook is only available with my Success Bundles. It is an ebook I wrote with 14 different tips to help you with the exam process. So not really about A+ or Network Plus or Security Plus. It's more about how do you prep before the exam. What are some strategies you can use in the exam to maximize the number of points that you're going to score? And then afterwards, how can you either see how you did or perhaps reset for another try? Because we've all been there, haven't we? It's on the Exam Hacks ebook, only available with my Success Bundle, professormesser.com/1002success. I've also got free questions for you on my website. These are my Take 10 challenge questions, 10 questions in each one of these little practice tests that are archives of this study group. You'll find them at professormesser.com/take10, and there are questions there for the A+, the Network Plus, and the Security Plus exams. You'll find them all right there. We've also got podcast versions of this available as a replay. If you want to listen in to the study group after the fact and you like your podcast listening program, load us up on your podcast program. You can find the links to that. The RSS feeds are at professormesser.com/podcast, and that will give you links to my A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups, and you can pick and choose which ones you would like. You don't have to get everything. If you only want one of those, you can just choose one of those, which makes it a little bit easier. The video version of this replay is also available on my website and on YouTube. And I will say on YouTube, you have one of the benefits of getting the YouTube video description and a set of timestamps that tells you exactly when things happen. So you can click on it and go right to a question, right to an answer, right to a phone call. And it's thanks to my marketing manager, Lori, who's having to watch this replay. Everybody say hi to Lori. She's listening in probably at 2x speed and figuring out when I'm doing these questions, when I'm doing the answers, and she edits and adds those timestamps to this. So thank you, Lori, for doing that. She also is the one that when I say, we'll put that in the video description, she's the one that makes sure that I do provide her with information to go into the video description. So it's not just me saying I am. We actually do put it in the video description, so it's really there. Oftentimes, that's not what you'll find. This time, hopefully, we'll cover the bases. If not, let us know, and we'll fix it. There's always that, too. Let's go back to the question we asked about before. A Windows administrator would like to test the audio output on a user's laptop. Which of the following would be the best way to perform this test? Would it be MSTSC, DXDiag, MSInfo32, regedit, or services.msc? I said MSInfo32 like it was three things. MSInfo32, it's one thing. Let's look at the results, see how you did. 67% of you say it's DXDiag is the right answer. You've got MSTSC at 11%, services.msc at 16%, MSInfo32 at 5%, and regedit, only 1% of folks chose that one. Well, if you have to do any video or audio diagnostic, DXDiag is a great tool to use for that. So this is one that will help you with graphics, audio, input for the mouse, the keyboard. It's a great utility and very quick to do things. If you just want a quick diagnostic, this will really help you out because you can turn on the audio, have it go through this. It's a great way to quickly, it's not a comprehensive diagnostic, but a great way to see if everything's working the way you would expect. DXDiag, a fantastic tool to do that. You can find out about that from our video, the 221002 section 1.5, the video named System Utilities. And you'll notice in all these answer pages, there is a QR code that I put there so that you can point at it with your camera and you can jump right to the video if you want to. So there's something there as well you can work through. So hopefully maybe you remembered that one from last month. Maybe the fog of the holidays is something you don't recall very well, but now maybe you also learned something too, or you can remember something too for that exam. Let's now do some new questions. The first new question of the day is always a performance-based question. Now, if you've never taken a CompTIA test before, you may not realize that the CompTIA exam is not just multiple choice questions. This was a multiple choice question where you just have a question and then a number of answers to choose from, multiple choices to choose from. And there's always a chance you could guess at this one and get it right. Well, instead of doing that with the first handful of questions of the exam, CompTIA will give you a question that is not multiple choice. So it's anything but multiple choice. It's a matching question. It's a fill in the blank. It's a drag and drop. It's putting things in a certain order. It's maybe doing things at a command line. Maybe it's using the Windows interface. There's a lot of this to be able to cover. So it could be almost anything, but the topics for these questions are all from the exam objectives. So if you study the exam objectives, it doesn't matter how they ask the question, you'll know how to do it. I have for you today a matching question. This matching question asks, match the Windows utility to the description. So I have 4 descriptions and I have 7 Windows utilities. So these are not a one-to-one. You're going to have some left over at the end, which makes this a little bit harder, which by the way is what they do on the exam to you. So let's go through these 4 different descriptions. One description is repair logical file system errors. The other description is modify Windows imaging format files. The third description is push policy settings to a computer or user. And the fourth is duplicate files across servers. So those are 4 different descriptions. Now we need to fit 4 different utilities to those 4 descriptions. The utilities that I've listed are SFC, format, GP update, DISM, shutdown, check disk, and robocopy. Those are the 7 descriptions. So we're going to have 3 left over, in other words. So we want to repair logical file system errors, modify Windows imaging format files, push policy settings to a computer or user, or duplicate files across servers. Is that SFC, format, GP update, DISM, shutdown, check disk, and robocopy. Quite a bit to go through. So let's see if you know what these happen to be. Have a look through that. See if you can match those up. I think there's good ones here to choose from. So if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer there. Please no answers in the chat room. This is one that is not a one-to-one. I'm not just giving you 4 and 4. You kind of have to figure out what you're going to leave out of this. And that's a very common strategy on the exam. They don't often give you one-to-one matching questions with the performance-based questions. So I thought I would give you not only one that's, I think, moderately challenging to figure out, but it's in a similar format to what you would see on the actual exam to kind of prep you and get you ready for this. A lot of people think the performance-based questions are all simulations, but that's not the case at all. There's a number of questions you will get that might be matching or questions like this where you have to put things in a particular order. So hopefully you're familiar with that too. I'm going to scroll down and see how people are doing with this one. We've got a number of answers that are coming in. A lot of you are doing very good with this one. There's a combination of things that I think there's a little bit of the first one right out of the gate is a question. So these people in the chat room have been saying, oh, I should have chosen something else for A. That should have been different for A. So let's go through each one of these one by one and see how we did with this. We want to match the Windows utility to the description, and we'll start with letter A, which is repair logical file system errors. That's a very specific description, isn't it? repair, because there are things in this list of things between SFC format, GP update, DISM, shutdown, check disk, and robocopy. There's different utilities that will fix or repair different things. We want to repair the logical file system errors, and to be able to do that, we need check disk. A number of you said SFC, the system file checker. The file checker will repair files. It will repair the files that are on the system that have been modified by something else, or that were the wrong files. Something has changed with those files. Very common to run SFC during the process of mitigating a malware attack, for example, to make sure that all of your system files are still in place and haven't been changed by the malware. So that system file checker is still a valuable tool, but SFC does not modify the file system itself. So it's not checking for logical errors in NTFS. It's not checking for logical errors in FAT32. So that's why the check disk is the proper one to use. Their check disk will repair logical file system errors and physical drive errors. So it even goes through all the sectors of a spinning drive and checks each one of those to make sure it can read and write to every single one of those sectors. So that's one that will, even if you got a big drive, it may take forever if you're planning to go through that particular fix on the physical drive. But that's a great functionality if you need to confirm that, is my drive something that's going to be able to hold data? Is this a good drive? Is this drive going bad? How can I check it? Check disk is the way to do it. SFC will not check to see if your disk is going bad. It won't check to see if your file system is corrupted in some way. It's only looking to see if certain files have been changed. So pretty important to know the difference between those two. The next on our list was modify Windows imaging format files. Those are WIM files, the Windows image files, very commonly used in the Windows operating system. And to be able to modify and manage those, you need to use the DISM utility. These are functions, especially with the DISM utility, that can help you add to, remove, modify, manage these image files. Because once they're image files, there's no individual files to work with. So you need to have some method to be able to work with, to manage and administer those files. As a system administrator, you will be using those quite a bit to be able to work with those. So modifying those will require you to work with the DISM utility. Third on our list, push policy settings to a computer or user. This is one of the secret sauces of Windows, is the ability to manage these systems. In some cases, thousands and thousands and thousands of Windows devices you can manage from a single desktop. And that's, I think, why Windows has the huge corporate structure that it has today. So that would be the GP update. Global policies is what those policy settings are referring to. Those global policies are managed with GP update and other GP utilities. So that's the one we were looking for here, is pushing policy settings using the GP update command. And last on our list, duplicate files across servers. What is the best way to do that? Given these 7 options, which one would you use to be able to do that? It's not a group policy. These are just standard files to be able to work through those. So these are instead robocopy. That's what we would use. We used the group policy update on the previous. So robocopy would be the one that we would use. Whenever you start working through these utilities, and all of these utilities, by the way, are in your exam objectives, they want you to know what these utilities do, and if at all possible, be able to use them at least functionally. And you don't have to know every possible feature and every possible piece of these utilities, but knowing how to copy files is extremely useful. Knowing how to perform a check disk, knowing how to perform a GP update command are useful. You probably won't be asked to do an extensive set of commands on the exam using these, and they're probably not going to ask you details about what every single option is for each one of these, but a broad understanding of what these are used for and when you would use them is extremely important. So all of these are listed in your exam objectives and more. There's plenty more utilities you need to know on the 220-1002. This is just a handful of them. And that is your performance-based question for today. That should help you get an idea of what you might expect when you go to walk in for the exam. There will be questions like this. There will be others that are both easier and more difficult. So be ready and being able to work through those and have them available. Let's shift gears now and move to some multiple choice-based questions, since the bulk of your exam is going to be multiple choice. The next on our list is a Windows question, and it asks, a Windows 10 workstation contains a share name ending in a $sign. Which of the following would best describe this share? Is it publicly writable? Is it available only on the local device? Does it contain encrypted files? Is it administratively hidden? Or is it a shared printer? Those are your 5 options. A Windows 10 workstation contains a share name ending in a $sign. Which of the following would best describe this share? Is it publicly writable, available only on the local device, contains encrypted files, administratively hidden, or a shared printer? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. Remember, no answers in the chat room, please. Thank you so much. No hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend we are actually taking the exam right now, and we're not going to be in a position to worry about where those particular questions and answers are coming from. And no Googling. Stop the Googling. No Googling. That's the deal. To be able to work through those. Don't, because in your exam, you won't be able to Google. I've been talking with a few people that are saying, I'm going to take my exam at home, because if I'm at home, I can put on my books and go with Google. I can Google on my phone while I'm answering the question. No, you can't. They're watching you. People think that there's no one watching. No, they're on the camera and they're staring at you the entire time. The entire time they're recording it in case they need to go back and see something that maybe they missed. So you don't get to Google. You don't get to bring in books. They will check your desk. They check and make sure everything around you is clear. It's a big deal. It's supposed to be as secure an environment as you would be if you went to an actual exam center. So that's what it is. In fact, I'd say they watch you even closer when you are there. So I guess that's good. That's not creepy at all, is it? For them to do that. So that's when you would work through those. So see if you know this answer, a Windows 10 question. There's lots of Windows questions on the exam. This should get you going with the Windows questions having there. Yes, you can't speak when you're taking the exam at home. You can't speak when you're taking the exam in an exam center either. You can't cover your mouth because you could be saying the questions. That's why you can't cover your mouth. They don't want you in some way getting those questions out after the fact. So it's a way to protect the exam questions itself. Let's see how we did with this one. The question was, a Windows 10 workstation contains a share name ending in a $sign. Which of the following would best describe this share? Is it publicly writable, available only on the local device, contains encrypted files, administratively hidden, or a shared printer? Which one of these would it be? Let's show the results. How do we do? 62% of us say it's administratively hidden. We have effectively a tie for second place between available only on the local device and contains encrypted files. And then a tie for third between publicly writable at 4% and a shared printer at 5%. So we're sort of mixed. We have 3 groups of folks that are sort of looking through all of these to figure out what it is. That $sign becomes very useful as a system administrator because that $sign is an administrative share. It is a share. Many times it's an administrative share, but it is a share that is hidden. It could be administrative or it could be one that a user creates. Users can create these shares and just put a $sign at the end. That means the share is hidden. It is a hidden share. It's commonly associated with administrative shares because by default, there are a number of shares that are hidden and created by default. For example, you may find on your system there is a C $sign, which is the entire C drive is just shared, but just for administrators. The reason we put the $sign is if somebody was just simply do a net view, they would not be able to see them. But if you did, and you knew the name of the share, you could type in a net use and be able to use that share as long as you knew the name. If you want to see what shares are on your system and configured, you can do just like the command I have here, net share at the command prompt, and it will show you all of the shares that are configured on your computer. List them all out. Some of these are pretty useful to have, especially if you do things like you share a printer. You want to share your drive so you can have it available to other systems as long as you put in the correct security so that nobody else can get to that drive. Those are hidden, in some cases administratively hidden shares. And in fact, the one that would best describe this one on the exam, the only option that best described a share name ending in a $, is answer D, administratively hidden. That is the one that you would find. It's only $signs that do this. So there's no other symbols that you could use to do something like this. It's only the $sign. As long as you put that $sign at the end of the share, it suddenly is hidden. Nobody else can see it for this and being able to work through those. So that's a useful one to have. Publicly writable, there's nothing in a share name that describes its rights or permissions, so that wouldn't be it. Available only on the local device. Well, no, it almost sounds like a branch cache kind of thing, or an after-the-fact offline sharing, but that's not what the $sign is for. That does not describe what that $sign is doing. Containing encrypted files, there's nothing in the share name that would have you identify files as being encrypted or not encrypted. In fact, the ones with the $sign could be encrypted. They might not be encrypted. We have no idea. We have no way to know to be able to do that. And lastly, a shared printer. Shared printers can have $signs or not $signs. That does not designate it as being a shared printer. That is just another, these $signs are just a way to either show or not show the name of that share if somebody does a net view. That's all it does. It kind of keeps things easy. So you can get rid of a lot of the noise, but still things that are necessary to have there, and people can see just the things that you want them to be able to see. That is the right answer. Administratively hidden if you answered D. 63% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. That is indeed, in fact, that's the only answer. It's not the best answer. It is the answer. It is the best answer that is in that list. Now, the questions that you have on the exam, by the way, the available answers that you get may not be the answer you were looking for, but that wasn't the question. The question is, which of the following would be the best answer in this particular case? So keep that in mind. I have people send me emails. I got one today that said, I answered this, but the answer you gave was not the one I was thinking of. So why wasn't it that one? Well, it wasn't that one because I didn't write that one down. These are the only choices you have. And that's why you, in the exam, don't read into it and don't look for your answer. You pull from their answers and be able to do that. Makes sense. Let's do another question. I have one for you. A lot of the exam is so big on malware, you can almost see the question before I bring it up. Now, the question asks, which of the following is the last step in the malware removal process? Is that to enable system restore, download signature and engine updates, educate the end user, quarantine infected systems, or scan and remove the malware? Which of the following is the last step in the malware removal process? Is it enable system restore, download signature and engine updates, educate the end user, quarantine infected systems, or scan and remove the malware? Those are your options. There's a whole section in the exam objectives for removing malware. But of course, my overall, and I mentioned this in my course, the correct answer is you delete everything and you restore from a known good backup or a fresh install. That's the only way to remove malware. However, sometimes you need to get that system up and running fast enough so that you can maybe do a thing, download a file, back up something that you didn't have access to. Sometimes you do work through that in being able to figure out those things. And then maybe once you get it restored enough to back it up, get it running, get the files you need, then you nuke everything. But there is a process you have to go through when you start going through the removal of malware. And there is no better option than to nuke everything and restore from a known good backup. That's the answer. But that's not what we're asking about. We're asking about the malware removal process. And sometimes you don't have a choice. You can't nuke everything first. You first have to recover, and then you can nuke everything. So that's my perspective whenever I start working through those and having an idea of what to do with that. Let's see how you did with this one. We're able to focus in on what this one happened to be. The question asked, which of the following is the last step in the malware removal process? Is it enable system restore, download signature and engine updates, educate the end user, quarantine infected systems, or scan and remove the malware? And you answered, 72% of you said you educate the end user. That's what you said you should do. 13% of you say enable system restore. That's the last step. 6% said quarantine infected systems. 4% said download signature and engine updates. And 4% said scan and remove malware. There is a pretty major group of you. I would say that's a pretty strong majority that say educate the end user is the last step of the malware removal process. It's perhaps one of the most important parts of the malware removal process, and it doesn't happen until you're done. The reason it's so important, of course, is you don't want to have to go through this again. You want to in some way let the user know if they see this, if they get a message on their screen, if they get an email, if they do any of these things, it could be a bad thing. So don't do that. Or inform us before you do it, and we can help make a suggestion on what you should do. There's lots of ways to educate the end users, of course. It doesn't have to be sitting down with them one-on-one. It could be messages when they log in. It could be posters that go up in a workplace. Not very useful today, is it? Not many people in the workplace to see the message. Login messages become pretty important. The intranet becomes pretty important. So educating them is indeed the last step. Once you have identified the malware, turned off all of the system restore, you have removed the malware from the system, you have made sure that it's able to download and scan periodically, you've turned back on the system restore. Now you tell the user, don't do that again, and here's how you can avoid it. And that way everybody is happy at the end when you're finished with that. Educating the end user is the right answer. If you're one of those 73% that said educate the end user, you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. 13% of you said enable system restore, and that's what you would do just before you would educate the end user. If you recall at the beginning of the malware removal process, you turn off system restore. So you have to re-enable it so that you have that functionality available. You turn it off earlier so that it will delete all of your system restore points because there could be malware. There's probably is malware in those system restore points. So go ahead and get rid of the system restore points, get rid of the malware on the live system, and then before you turn it back over to the user, turn the restore points back on and being able to do that. Pretty important to have those capabilities and that functionality. That's whenever I start going through the process, that's what I want to do. Downloading the signature and engine updates should occur prior to removing the malware. You're going to need the latest signatures to be able to do that. Quarantining the infected system, that should happen first thing. Take it off the network, unplug it from everything. We don't want it spreading. And then scanning and removing the malware happens right after you download the signature and engine updates. That is not the last step. It's a couple steps away from the last step. So the one we were looking for was C, educate the end user. That indeed is the last step of the malware removal process. Let's do another Windows question, shall we? I've got one for you. This question asks, which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for managing Windows 10 workstations on an Active Directory domain? Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for managing Windows 10 workstations on an Active Directory domain? Would that be VBScript, Python, Shell scripts, JavaScript, or PowerShell? 5 different options to choose from. Is that VBScript, Python, Shell scripts, JavaScript, or PowerShell? Those are your options. So hopefully that is one, if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out what the best choices are going to be on a Windows 10 workstation and Active Directory. Maybe you work in a Windows 10 environment. with Active Directory? Maybe you've seen this. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA in the blue right there at the bottom. Lock in the answer. See if you happen to know what it is, what it happens to be. This is one where we really do want to step through understanding all of these different scripting languages. I put a few different scripting languages here, and all of them come from the exam objectives. So if you are someone who is working through the exam objectives, you may recognize those. And in fact, there's a couple more that I didn't put in this list. So there's if you're not familiar with the 1002, if you've studied older versions, you'll notice these are new in the 220-1002. This is new to the Core 2 exam. They want you to become more familiar with automation, which is good because we've been doing automation for so long. And I think there's a renewed interest in automation, especially when we're doing things with the cloud. So it just makes sense that you would want to automate as much as you possibly can. I sure do. I do tons of scripting. Constantly throughout my career has been tons of scripting because I don't want to have to do it over and over again. I want it to happen automatically. I want it to happen at the speed of the computer and not the speed of me typing. So scripting makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. A number of you have locked in your answer. Stop Googling. I can tell when you Google, by the way. I can see what's going on when you're going through the process. I see the numbers as they are incrementing. So that's why whenever we start getting into slow incrementing numbers, I know that you're busy doing something. And that's what it is. So let's see how you did with your Googling. The question asked, which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for managing Windows 10 workstations on an Active Directory domain? Is it VBScript, Python, Shell scripts, JavaScript, or PowerShell? Let's show the results. Another 73%, we're kind of stuck on that number, say it's PowerShell is the right answer. And then single digits for everything else. We have 9% for VBScript, 9% for Shell script, 4% for Python, 4% for JavaScript. It's almost the same distribution as the last question. It's kind of weird. PowerShell, though, hit 73% of what's there. Now, why would PowerShell be the right answer for Windows 10 workstations on Active Directory? Well, it's the right answer because that is specifically written to do this, to manage and administer Windows devices. Now, you may think on Windows machines, you've got the command prompt. Why wouldn't you just use the command prompt? That's what you would use to script everything. You'd perform a batch script. This batch file would be able to perform functions automatically. But the Windows command prompt is something that was held over from the DOS days, the disk operating system days. DOS was extremely useful for doing these batch files, but DOS didn't know some of the things that are inside the Windows operating system. DOS has no perspective of what a registry is. DOS has no perspective of what Active Directory is. DOS has no idea of how to manage services. So to be able to do that, you need a shell, a automation environment that is really built for Windows, that understands the inner workings of the Windows operating system, and that's what PowerShell is. That is the underlying understanding what's happening with Windows. Huge functionality here. If you become an expert in PowerShell, you will be much appreciated by your employer if you are doing, especially if you're doing Windows, and especially if you're doing Active Directory. Very, very useful to have this. You can automate, you can integrate, you can have things happen without you having to touch anything. This is a fantastic Windows automation tool. Become very familiar with this. If you become an expert in PowerShell, you're somebody who's well sought after. You have a very powerful skill in the world of Windows and Windows administration. Windows PowerShell is what does that for you. That is the right answer. So if you are one of the folks that answered PowerShell, answer E, the 73% of you, you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. Now, why wouldn't it be VBScript? That's Visual Basic scripts, Visual Basic for applications, and VB scripting is a Windows automation scripting language, but it's really designed for application. You see it mostly inside of the Windows Office, Microsoft Office applications, very commonly used to script and macro things within those apps, but it's not really designed to manage Windows at an operating system level or Active Directory at an Active Directory level. So that's not the best choice for what you would be trying to do. Next on our list was Python. Hey, I thought Python did everything. Python does do everything. Python's pretty powerful. Python is an amazing tool that works across many different operating systems, but it is not specifically built for Active Directory. You have to enable different and add on different capabilities. Python by itself knows nothing of Active Directory, really. So that is not the best choice given the ones that are available on this list. Only 4% of you thought it was the case anyway. Shell scripts are useful. Shell scripts we commonly refer to or think of as Linux or Unix-based functions. And of course, here we're talking about Windows 10. And even if you were running shell scripts on a Linux machine, shell scripts know nothing of Active Directory, so perhaps not the best choice for maintaining and understanding the Windows operating system. JavaScript is a scripting language that runs inside of your browser. So JavaScript used all the time. If you're on ProfessorMesser.com right now, then there's a number of JavaScripts that are running that are showing you things on the screen and automating what you see on the screen and making things work the way it should be working. JavaScript incredibly useful for that, but JavaScript knows nothing of Active Directory. That is why that would not be a good choice, and only 4% of you thought it would be anyway. The best answer is the one that 73% of you chose, PowerShell, answer E. That's the one. Well done. That's what you should have chose, and that's you did a good job with that one. One of the things you'll notice on these questions and in sort of the style of questions I'm asking here, these are not designed to emulate an actual exam, but they're to give you a little bit of the flavor of the style of questions you might get. One of the challenges you'll find, especially with this type of exam, is it's very, very hard to find high-quality test questions, practice questions, because it would be nice to have questions that had the same difficulty level and the same style as the actual exam. And I found that there's not a lot out there that can give you that. So I wrote my own set of practice exam questions that I believe will give you that. I specifically wrote these to be in the same style, the same vein, the same voice as an actual exam question. And I tried to make them with the same difficulty level. Now, these are not actual exam questions. I wrote all of these exam questions myself. I write all of my content myself. So I know how difficult these questions are. They are in my practice exams book. This is my Core 2 practice exam book, 380 pages long. In fact, I've got it here. Here it is. There we go. There's the practice exam book. It's a thick one. It's a big book. This took months to write. I just remember being in here every day and writing from sun up to sundown, even then after. A great book to have, though, for that. I have a digital version and the physical version for you. In fact, let me bring up, I think I've got it right here. Here is the book itself. Let's do a question from the book. So here's a question, question A11. George, a sales manager, has recently replaced a broken mobile phone with a newer version. After receiving a new phone, he restored all of his apps and data from a recent backup. However, when he attempts to download any new mail messages, he receives a message, unable to decrypt email. Which of the following steps should a technician follow to resolve this issue? Are they A, install the latest operating system patches, B, delete the email app and reinstall? Is it C, restart the phone, or is it D, install the user's private keys? And if you are reading the book, you could, of course, pop open a new window or write down what you think the answer is. Or maybe we could check the answer now. We can go to just the quick answer that would tell us, is it A, B, C, or D? But I'm going to click on the link here that is the details. And this goes to page 47 because I'm on page 15 right now. But all of the answers are somewhere else on this list. So I'm going to take you to those details by just clicking on the details. And it jumps to page 47. So here you can see that we've got the question again with all of the answers, and it shows you the answer is D, install the user's private keys. And what I do for every answer is I tell you why it's the right answer. A user's private keys are used to decrypt any messages that have been encrypted with the corresponding public keys. Installing these private keys onto the mobile device will allow the user to view their encrypted mail messages. But what I also do, because I never get these right, I always get these wrong, and the question I'm always left with is, I answered something else, but why is that not the right answer? So for every answer, both right and wrong in this book, I give you an explanation of why the right answers were right and why every wrong answer was wrong. So you can, if you answered A, install the latest operating system patches, I explain to you why that's not the right answer. If you answered B, delete the email app and reinstall, I give you a description, an explanation of why that's not the right answer. If you answered C, restart the phone, I'll tell you why that's not the best answer you should have chosen. So that you cannot be wondering anymore why that wasn't the right answer that you got. And what I think this actually does, and if you do get this book and you read through it, even if you get the question right, read through the wrong answers as well. You will learn just as much from the wrong answers as you learn from the right answer. So don't rush through here and like, got it right, got it right, got it right, got it right. Understanding why those wrong answers were wrong is going to help you on the exam as well. Also at the bottom of this is a QR code. If you have your phone out, pop open your camera. You don't have to take a picture. Just point your camera at the screen at the QR code, and it will bring up a link to the video for the 221002 Objective 3.4 Troubleshooting Mobile Apps, or you could simply click the link to my website, which is on the page, and it will take you to the video that shows this. Now, why aren't those keys in the backup? Sometimes private keys are not part of a backup process because they're private keys. So that may be specifically excluded from those. The installation of those keys is managed by your administrators. They know where the keys are. They're probably in Active Directory. They know how to get them to your machine. There's a push process. But they know how to make that happen. Not part of this question, but since you were asking, that's how it happened. Now, you want to go back to where you were, you just hit the back button in your PDF reader, and you can go to the next question on the list. That is the practice exams, something that can maybe help you. I always say you should watch some videos, you should read a book, you should get as much hands-on as possible, and you should take as many Q&A as you can. This maybe will help you along those lines. If you would like to purchase this, you can find it on professormesser.com/core2pe, or simply follow the links at the top of the website. Let's do some, and by the way, for those of you in the chat room who said, oh, I have this book, I'm getting this book, thank you so much. Every dollar of this goes to keep this entire crazy experiment going. So thank you so much for your support. Let's do some more questions. We've got more here. The next question on the list asks, a Windows system administrator would like to create a report showing the available drive space on a computer sampled every 15 minutes for 2 days. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this report? Would I use Performance Monitor, Disk Management, Task Manager, Services, or Reliability Monitor? That question again is, a Windows system administrator would like to create a report showing the available drive space on a computer sampled every 15 minutes for 2 days. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this report? Would it be Performance Monitor, Disk Management, Task Manager, Services, or Reliability Monitor? If you think you know the answer, lock it in. ProfessorMesser.com/QA. See if you know the answer. This is not an unusual question. I think I have absolutely done this on Windows machines. So that. Oh, for those of you asking, yes, if you get the physical version of the book, you get the digital one for free. So while you're waiting on this to be delivered to your address, you can download the PDF and start using it instantly. So that's why. That's kind of nice to have that. Got both of them available. And of course, it's a PDF, so you can put it on all of your devices and just take it with you wherever you go. I have done this where I've had to take a sample of a statistic every certain amount of time for long, especially these problems that are ongoing. They're intermittent. It's never happening when you're there. That kind of one. That's what you want to do to have that functionality. I show an example of this in my videos. Some folks in the chat room are saying, this is a weird one, isn't it? Actually, not so much. I demonstrate this in my videos. So this will be one that you may want to go back and watch, how I set one up and get some of these going. The problem, I think, is that the answers here are kind of difficult. The answers kind of leaning you in a direction or two. Like some of them, well, do I use that? It could be that way. We'll go through all the answers when we're done and talk about why this right answer is right, why the wrong answers were wrong. As soon as you finish your Googling, because I see you Googling. I can see it. I'm watching it. The problem, of course, is that every question in our study groups are all new questions. I write every question every month brand new for this to have that. So that's why you aren't going to find this question anywhere. It's not in the Google machine because it has never been Googled. It has never been indexed by the Google machine or DuckDuck or AltaVista. It's not been AltaVisted. It's not even existing. It doesn't exist anymore. Who bought AltaVista? Who was that? I don't recall. Was it Ask Jeeves? Maybe it was Jeeves that bought AltaVista. I want to say it was. I looked this up recently, which is why I mentioned what that is. Let's see how you did with this question. A Windows system administrator would like to create a report showing the available drive space on a computer sampled every 15 minutes for 2 days. Which of the following would be the best way to provide this report? Is it Performance Monitor, Disk Management, Task Manager, Services, or Reliability Monitor? You chose, let's show the results. 42% of us chose Performance Monitor. 29% chose Disk Management. 12% chose Reliability Monitor, and 11% chose Task Manager. And in last place, single digits with 6%, Services. What would you choose to be able to do this? Long-term statistical gathering is done with Performance Monitor. That's exactly what Performance Monitor does. It looks at tons of metrics that you can monitor over time. Here's an example of monitoring that over time. The statistics on this screen. What am I monitoring here? Does it show? It's showing processor time. I'm looking at CPU time. That processor's busy. So that's a processor time between, let's zoom up, 951 through 950 and 950-107. I think it's a messed up on my screen. Oh, it circles back. It only shows you what's on the screen there. So you're looking at about a minute's worth of information that's on this particular screen. And you can, of course, show other metrics. I'm just showing CPU on this screen, but you could show disk utilization. You can show memory utilization. You could show access. You could show network setting. There's tons of information in here. This goes deep. And you can even set alerts and alarms on this. So if you're waiting for a certain thing to happen, you can be informed that that thing happened. This also stores all the statistics on the drive, so you can later on go back and look at them and be able to see what is there and create reports from all this. There's a report builder right in it, so you can look at the reports. It's one of these tools that I don't think we use enough of, but it's just tons of info that's available in here. If you wanted to watch this, it's in the 221,002 section 1.5, a video called Windows Administrative Tools, and there's the QR code that will take you right to that video if you want to see it. Performance Monitor is the one you would use to be able to do this. It can tell it how often you want to sample and how long you would like that information sampled, and it will do it. If you're one of the 43% that answered A, Performance Monitor, you got it right. Now, what about these others? We have Disk Management. After all, I said we want to create a report showing available drive space. Well, Disk Management, very useful for showing us what it is right now, but Disk Management doesn't do any type of trending or statistical gathering or storing of statistical information over a long period of time. So although Disk Management will tell us what is the available drive space on a drive, it won't monitor it or show us this over time. So not a good choice for that. Task Manager, a fantastic tool that you will very often use to know what's happening on my computer right now. I need to know what is CPU utilization, which process is using the most CPU utilization, what process is using the most memory, what process is using the most disk I/O. You can see all of that with Task Manager, but it's designed to be in real time of what's going on. So that is one where real time is great, but what if you need to track it over days of time? Task Manager doesn't help you there. That is not the best choice. 12% of you said Reliability Monitor. I've done a number of questions in the past on the study group on Reliability Monitor, which is a real utility and an extremely useful utility that effectively is a broad view of your event viewer, if nothing else. It's a graphical display that shows us where everything messed up and how we could drill down into the event viewer to see the details of that mess up. That's a very technical term that I use. The reliability monitor, very useful for that, but it doesn't gather stats over time. It certainly doesn't take 15-minute snapshots of utilities over a 2-day period. That's not what it's designed to do. It does show some interesting metrics and statistics, but it's not very customizable. It's really showing you a description of what's contained in your event viewer. Still a great tool to be able to use that. And then services, another great tool to be able to see what type of background processes are running on your computer. You can start and stop services, but it doesn't gather any metrics either to be able to use that. So not one that you would take advantage of for that. That's not what you would choose either. So services, a great tool for this, for managing the services, but not a great tool for being able to keep track of metrics and collecting metrics over that time frame. The best answer here, the only answer here, although I said the best way, the only way to really do what we want to do is with Performance Monitor. If you answered A, Performance Monitor, 44% of you got that absolutely correct. Now, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, then listen closely and I'll give you 1 hour of a webinar category CEU if you follow these instructions. If you are not familiar with continuing education unit, then this doesn't have anything to do with you. You can ignore this part. But for those of you that collect CEUs, I realize fewer and fewer of you are doing that these days since there is the CertMaster CE. But if you still are collecting CEUs, you want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click on the Contact Us link. On that Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address, put in the subject line that this is the January 2021 Core 2 study group. In the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month by itself on a line by itself. If you put it in all caps, it would even make me so happy. Put the super secret code word of Performance Monitor. That is your super secret code word of the month, Performance Monitor. So again, you want to go to the top or the bottom of the website, click the Contact Us link, put your name, your email. In the subject line, put that this is the January 2021 Core 2 study group. And in that message, put the words Performance Monitor. And then you can put anything else you'd like in there too. I read through every single one of these. I'm not able to necessarily respond back to everyone because I get a lot of these. But I do read through every single one of them. So when you send it in, know that I'm reading them. Trust me, I do. I read through everything you send me. So Performance Monitor is that super secret code word of the month. And what I do is over the next week, I will sit down, I will process these, I'll make sure that it matches. I will send you back an email that certifies that you must have watched this because you knew the super secret code word, and I bequeath upon you a 1 hour CEU. That's what that email does. Very fancy. And I'd put a digital signature on it so you can't change it. Somebody wanted to verify, they would know that you didn't change the 1 to a 10 hours. See, I'm on to you. So digital signature prevents that from happening. So you'll see a weird attachment. That's what that weird attachment is. It's the digital signature. And you can validate the digital signature with PGP using my public key, which is available on the public key servers out on the internet world. So if you have questions about that, just send me a message. And if you've never done anything with PGP and you're planning to do Security Plus, give it a shot. Send me an encrypted message with PGP. Let's see if it works. And I'll send you back an encrypted message if I can find your key. So very useful. That will give you 1 hour of a webinar category CEU, and that applies to both A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus because of the way that CompTIA does this thing. I know it's top of the hour. Let's do one more question. Let's squeeze in another one into this list. The next question on our list asks, which of the following would be the best way to prevent unauthorized logins to a tablet computer? Would it be full device encryption, frequent patching, biometrics, run an antivirus app, or enable cloud-based backups? The question was, which of the following would be the best way to prevent unauthorized logins to a tablet computer? Is it full device encryption, frequent patching, biometrics, run an antivirus app, or enable cloud-based backups? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. We'll lock in the answer there and figure out the details of that. Oh, if you are studying Security Plus, you don't get digital signatures, then you absolutely want to send me a message and digitally sign it. And I will send you a message and digitally sign it, and then we'll play around with that. We'll figure out the details of that. See if you know this answer, though. We're dealing with tablets. No big deals there. But is security best way to prevent unauthorized logins to a tablet computer? I would say this question is one that applies to A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. So this question kind of covers the bases of a lot of different things. If you know this, you're going to be in pretty good shape to be able to work through it. So this will be a best way to make that happen. So this would be one that you do need to know. This will follow you through your career. It will haunt you. Maybe not haunt you. Maybe it's not the right term. But it's a question you should know. It's a technology you should know. There's a lot of different options, and all the technologies listed there are security technologies. So figure it out. See if you can break it down. See if you can work through all of those and have those work that way. This would be one of those kinds of questions. Let's see how you did. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent unauthorized logins to a tablet computer? And the answer that most of you gave, 86% of you gave, is biometrics. 12% of you said full device encryption, though. Let's talk about that in a moment. And then we've got 1% that said frequent patching, 1% said run an antivirus app, and 0% said to enable cloud-based backups. Well, it may surprise you that the answer is not surprising at all. It's biometrics is the answer. Biometrics is the way that you, based on these 5 options, these are the ones that would prevent unauthorized logins to a tablet computer. So that's the one that you would go through to figure out what details are there. If anything, the encryption was one that can prevent people from gaining access to your data, but we were talking about just getting access into the device. It'd be your face. It would be capabilities of your maybe a keypad code that you would punch in. It's something that would give you access to be able to use that device. And biometrics is the option that would allow you to use that. That is the right answer. The biometrics is what we were looking for. That is the one that would prevent access to the machine itself, getting access to either authenticate or gain access to anything else that's on that device. It's biometrics that was what we were looking for. All the questions we did today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. You need these objectives. This is what you want to put in there. Go download the objectives. They are at professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link that will take you over to the CompTIA website, or just type into the Google machine, CompTIA exam objectives, fill in that form, and download the latest version of those objectives. They do update and make spelling error checks and that type of thing to the objectives. So make sure you have the latest one of those. And they're a great checklist for your exam. They're a great checklist for the beginning of your studies. They're a great checklist before you go into your exam to see if you still have the latest or at least know all of the latest topics that are on those objectives lists. Make sure you have them. It's a fantastic tool to use. Everyone should have this and be able to use it. Incredibly useful. Well, that is an hour of Q&A that we were able to do today. We've got more Q&A coming, so stick around the after show. But we do one of these every month. So I've got 4 study groups set up for February already. We have A+ on the 16th and 18th for the Core 1 and Core 2 respectively. And we have Network Plus on the 23rd and Security Plus on the 25th. We still have Network Plus and Security Plus this month. So if you ever want to know when the next live event is going to be, stick around or come back on next week. Always check the website, though, at professormesser.com/calendar. And we'll have you come back next week and work through all of those. If you are working through your A+ exam, you'll notice that we went through tons of topics, and the exams themselves are tons of topics. I have a set of course notes, both in a physical and digital format, that can help you get through all of these topics as well. It is a summary of everything that was on my exam. So you'll notice there's tons of videos to go through. The course notes have all of those tables and text and breakdowns and command prompts and all those other things. They're out there on my website, professormesser.com/1000notes. And if you combine them with the practice exams, you get a little bit of a discount. So that might help you as well If you're someone trying to save a little bit of money, that might help along those lines. Feel free to have a look at those on my website, professormesser.com/1000 notes. Stick around for the after show. We're going to turn on the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. We'll see what kind of questions you have about really anything. Don't forget about on my website, the Course Notes and Success Bundle. And of course, follow us on the Twitter and the YouTube and the Instagram. And if you had a good time here and you learned something and you liked what we did, click that like button on the video. It really does go a long way working with the folks at YouTube to let them know that this is the type of content that you would like to have on their platform. So thank you for doing that. This is a lot of content in a very short period of time. That's why we'll sort of unpack this in the after show. If you have more questions or things you would like to know about, that's the time to ask them. Stick around for the after show. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. What, you don't like me calling it the Twitter and the Google machine? It's because I have kids, and they hate it when I call it the Twitter, the Google machine. So, of course, I need to bring that hatred into the live stream. I don't know why I do that, but there it is. That is a lot of information in a short period of time, but we've got questions that we can answer for you. This is the after show. Welcome, everybody, to the after show. If you will bear with me a moment, I will get the phone lines up and running because it's all a cloud-based service. I use a cloud-based service called Call In Studio to set up and receive your phone calls, but I first have to call into the show myself to make that happen. And there's no one here to do it for me. I'm the only one in the room. So if you will bear with me, I click on Skype. This only takes a moment. And I call in myself to the show. There we go. And they ask for a certain thing here, and I type that certain thing in with a pound sign. And
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I sure will, if I can remember it. I've only been typing in this same PIN forever, and the nice lady says,
welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. Well, that means that you are able to call into the show. It is a toll-free number in the United States, the continental United States specifically. That toll-free number, 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you are outside of the continental United States, you can still call me for free because toll-free numbers are free if you use Skype. There's no Skype minutes required. On Skype, though, you have to put the country code. So put a +1 at the beginning. So the number is +1 855-785-7545, and you're welcome to call in there as well. So there is a number of folks asking questions. We have calls that are coming in. Thank you for holding there. A question from the chat room is, what is my advice for starting cybersecurity? Should I do security first or networking first? Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by cybersecurity. That's kind of a broad term. We sort of use it as an overlay to all things security related in the world of technology, even though there is no such thing as an overlay of all things security in the world of technology. We still use this term cybersecurity, but let's focus down to IT security. That's sort of where the Security Plus exam and the CompTIA exams focus. That's my background, is IT security. So that's a place I can at least talk to. We aren't talking about application development or programming. That's computer science. So that's over in the other part of IT. We're talking about kind of the operational side of IT, if you will, the information technology side, functionally. I would say if you are interested in becoming or having an expertise in IT security, you need to know as much as you can about the network. Now, it may not be necessary to have this networking knowledge out of the gate, but to continue to move ahead in IT security, you have to effectively become an expert in networking. You have to understand switching and routing protocols and network address translation and being able to set up and view a routing table and configure a router and configure a firewall for layer 3 and layer 2 and make sure the network isn't going to loop and make sure that you have all of the configurations for the routing that you need to have set up and make sure you have redundancy in place and that you're using the proper implementation between the layer 3 firewall that you're using and the rest of your switch network. These are kind of configuration challenges. They are engineering challenges. And you can't implement these security technologies unless you understand how to put them into the existing infrastructure. So having an understanding of the networking side of things becomes more and more important as you do more and more with security. So the common path people sometimes might take would be to start on the maybe operating system side or networking side, become very familiar on the network management side, network administration, and then move into security from there. But these days, I'm finding more jobs are available, kind of an entry-level SOC position, a security operations center. That's a SOC. There's a number of entry-level positions you can now get in a SOC, and then from there, you may want to get that security job and then start working on the networking side of things. And those are probably going to overlap very quickly for you. You're going to be doing a lot of trace routing and pinging and NS lookups and in mapping, and you need to understand when you're doing those, what is it doing? Who is that talking to? What am I doing when I run those commands? Unless you have the networking knowledge, you'll have no idea. You won't be able to continue through. So I think that on the security side, learn as much as you can about networking. It's going to be really important to you going forward. Let's go to the phone lines. We will start with Maryland, the 443 area code. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm calling from Baltimore. My name is Dante Ironheart. I recently passed both A+ and Network+.
Nice.
I didn't use your content on the first part, but I did use your content on the second part, and I scored an 822 for A+ and scored an 840 for Network+. I just want to say thanks, man. I was like, your material is where it's at. Like, my advice for the test is to focus on repetition on your material. So, like, going through it, like, at least 2 to 3 times, and then taking 30-minute breaks in between helps with memorization for me, so you don't get bored, because I learned from another professor that if you stay on something for more than an hour, you tend to hate it as the further you go.
Perfect thing to say as we enter the second hour of our study group, to say that congratulations, Dante, on first getting those certifications under your belt, getting great scores on those. I'm glad we could be part of it, but as I always say, I did the easy part. You're the one that had to study. You're the one that had to know these things. You're the one that had to take the exams. So congratulations. What is the next step for you now that you have these? Were you working on these to get to a certain point, or is there something you're going and doing from here?
Well, this is where I'm planning to stop. I am planning to get a job. I'm looking for like a help desk role or a desktop PC role. I have a little experience, at least more than a decade, in like helping people with random issues, fixing their computers, software and hardware issues.
Great.
So I was just trying to get some formal training. I went through a program that's all around the country. It's called Perscolas.
Uh-huh.
It's to help, low-income individuals find employment in tech with training and help with, like, get connected with other employers. So I've been looking for a job recently.
We've got a number of things to your advantage. The first is that you now have these certifications in your pocket. You can explain to people, not only have you worked with people through the years helping them with their security problems, which is a nice practical thing to bring to the table in an interview, by the way, but you've also now got the actual certificates. You could show somebody and say, yes, I am now certified. It's not just me that thinks I know these things. Somebody else thinks at least I know something about this after all. And you're in a very good geography. You're in a very good part of the country for these types of roles, these types of jobs that are out there. There's tons of jobs out there for help desk, for security operations centers, for network operations centers, lots of government facilities, and lots of private industry as well. So that is going to be a huge advantage to you. So congratulations with that, and best of luck on the job hunt.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dante. I appreciate the call. What a great story. And it's a good example of how just continuing to make that happen becomes ultimately the reality. You just have to stay with it and be able to make those things happen. And it will happen. You just have to keep going. There's just never a stopping point. And that really, to me, that's the real key. Let's go back to the phones. Previous caller, John from Tampa, and the 813 area code. Hi, John. What can we do for you?
Hi, Professor Messer. Just two questions. In a previous session like today's, you had mentioned a website where if you didn't have Windows 7, 8, or 8.1, I believe you were saying like you could go into the site and actually use those operating systems. Is that correct?
That is correct. I will bring that up here in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And the other question I had was Cloud Plus, if you thought that was something that would be a good idea to get.
I think let's start with Cloud Plus, and then we'll circle back to the Microsoft site we were referring to. The Cloud Plus, and I think the technologies around cloud are at a very basic level, some of the most important technologies you're going to work with these days, because everybody's in the cloud. Every organization is in the cloud. There's just no way to get around that at some level. Some organizations are just completely, that's everything they do is in the cloud. Some organizations are just sort of getting into it or have certain applications that they're using in the cloud. And I think everybody, at least to some degree, is working with technologies that are in their own facility that are cloud-based technologies. So when we say the cloud, we often think that it's at some other place. Could be a private cloud. Could be technology that you have in your own data center to be able to do this, but you're taking advantage of the cloud type infrastructure to be able to automate and scale in ways that you can't with the traditional servers. The website you were thinking of, before I move away from that, the popular cloud-based certifications these days are the ones from Microsoft with Azure, because Azure is incredibly popular. And you talk about the cloud, you can't get away from Amazon. The Amazon certifications are also good certifications to get. I think Cloud Plus is probably the beginnings before you get to the Azure and the Amazon, the AWS type certs. I think the Cloud Plus can be a good primer for that, but it's not necessarily what's going to give you everything you need to be able to get a job that's cloud focused. But I think that's a good starting point. Sort of like the A Plus is a good starting point for help desk, Cloud Plus is a good starting point for cloud-based roles. The website you were looking for to be able to find tools that are available from Microsoft is modern.ie, MODERN, as in the modern man, as in thoroughly modern Millie. There's a reference only 2% of you are going to get. This is a website that is a Microsoft developer website for Edge. So before you reel back in horror, first, it's a developer site. That's okay. You could still be there. You're good enough. And secondly, it's Edge, but that's okay because what they have here is so valuable. There is a tools pull-down menu on this site. That tools pull-down menu has virtual machines inside of it. That takes you to a page for virtual machines. Test IE11 and Microsoft Edge Legacy using free Windows 10 virtual machines you download and manage locally. Not just Windows 10. They have Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. Can't see it because there we go. Those are all VMs, virtual machines, that are ready to download, fully running Windows versions. Nothing you have to buy, nothing you have to do, nothing you have to license. They're just good for 90 days. And after 90 days, you can just download them again. They're going to be here to be able to do that. So this is incredibly useful to have that functionality. You can just download it, and let's choose one. I'll choose Windows 10. And the platforms available are VirtualBox, Vagrant, VMware for Windows and Mac, Hyper-V, which is for Windows, and Parallels, which is Mac. That's what I use, is Parallels. So, and I use VirtualBox, and I use VMware. So I could choose either one of these on my machine. Choose the one that works for you. If you've never done anything with a VM before, download VirtualBox. It's free, it's functional, it's fast, and download the VirtualBox VM for it, and it'll download this big old zip file, just a gig or two of zip data. So you got to have enough bandwidth to get your hands on this. And you unzip that. It gives you instructions on the website on how to get it running. And the VM that's a VM you're downloading to your machine. It's not in Microsoft's cloud. They do have some Windows setups that you can run in their cloud. This is Windows running on your system. So you do have to make sure you have enough memory and enough drive space and being able to do that. But incredibly useful and a great tool to use. You just have to remember modern.ie for Internet Explorer.
Modern.ie. Okay.
That'll get you there, and it'll redirect you over to that Microsoft website. It's a Microsoft site. The licensing says you cannot use this Windows for production use. We're not planning to. As long as you're using this for lab-type use, you are perfectly licensed to be able to use this.
Oh, perfect. Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, John. This is one, by the way, it's just a little tool that Microsoft puts out there. They put it out there forever. It used to be that they had all three of these, and then they shifted it so that you would only have Windows 10. And then I noticed they put Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 back out there, which is great for us because those are the operating systems you need to be able to do this on your computer. You may not need any more memory than you think you have. You may be able to do this with 8 gig on your system. I think you can easily be able to do that. If you only have 4 gig, well, that might be a challenge to run this VM, but I bet you could run that VM at 8 and you'd be fine. And I think most of us these days have that. I think it's probably the drive space for me that's the biggest one. I don't have 2 gig. I do have 2 gig available, but you'd have to have a little more than what I normally have in free space available to make that happen. Back to the phones. Let's go to 484. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there? Are you muted? Are you 484?
Hi, Professor Messer.
Hello. Thank you for calling.
Hi, my name is Zach from Allentown, PA.
Hey, Zach.
I just wanted to let you know I'm going to schedule my Core 2 probably for Monday. I'm going to take it from the house. I took my Core 1 from my house and I passed, and I've been using your stuff for the past year. It's been a tremendous help, and I appreciate everything you do. Especially since I've been homeschooling my daughter. I've been home. I've had a chance to do something different with myself,
great.
And I wanted to thank you so very much.
Fantastic. So I know people are going to wonder about this, and since I have you on the phone and you've taken one of these exams at home already, was there anything you had to do special for taking this exam at home, especially since you've got a family, there's things going on the rest of your life? What are the things that you had to do to prep to take this at home, and then how did the process go?
Right. I just I basically just cleared my room of everything because I don't feel like it's as specific about what you can have around and can't. So I just made sure my room had like no papers with writing on it. I mean, the stuff that my daughter draws for me, I take off the walls and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then so they make you take a picture, 4 pictures of each corner of your room to make sure nothing's there. Then you have to do like the ID. You take a picture of your license, and then when they approve that, you do the what's it called? The CompTIA candidate agreement.
Yep.
And then from there, you sit down and you wait for someone to through the Pearson VUE software. You wait for basically the screen to pop up, and you're in. More or less.
That's fantastic. And as people are saying in the chat room, and you have to not say anything out loud because they're watching you the whole time. They're listening to you the whole time.
Yeah, no. You can't say anything at all. I've read and heard that you get a warning, depending on what it is, but I was real strict about that with myself, that I just did not say anything at all whatsoever. I just tried to stay focused on reading. And actually, if I could be honest, the performance questions for me were not as bad as I thought they were going to be.
Good.
I thought they were going to be much harder, and they're really, as long as, like you say, as long as you know the material, like as long as you know what
kind of lost you there, Zach. Kind of fell off. You fell down a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you are.
Sorry. I was just saying, like, as long as you know the material for the performance base, it's not really like you said earlier in this episode, this live stream, that they're not going to go really so far in depth.
Perfect.
It's more of just knowing what like, especially with DISM and commands and utilities like that.
That's it. So now you've got this other exam to do. Is there a particular thing that you're working towards? Is there a reason for getting the certs, or is are you working sort of the certification process backwards and kind of figure out what to do with them after the fact?
If I could give you just a little background, I worked at a book printing company for 6 years. It really wasn't going anywhere for me. And then coronavirus happened, massive layoffs, all that stuff.
Right.
And I kind of just decided I needed to do something else. And I'm trying to go for, just getting any kind of job that deals with IT just to get my foot in the door. There is an amusement park near me that's hiring for an IT guy that I just want to pass the core 1, and the qualifications seem really basic. So I was just going to try to go for the most, the thing that matched my, I guess, experience and technical skills.
Yep.
Matched it as best as I could. And so that's basically it. I mean, I've tried to get as much hands-on. I built I built my own Linux machine. I have Ubuntu running. Actually, that's what I'm watching your stream on right now.
Nice.
So it's really cool. And I just want to say thank you again. I feel like I'm taking up more time for other callers that may have better questions than me rambling on. So,
Zach, congratulations on that. I like your story. I like the path you're taking. I think it's going to be good for you and your family. And best of luck with this next exam. Let us know how it goes.
Hey, Professor Messer, I'm going to be sticking with you, though, because I got Security Plus and Network Plus lined up. Thank you so very much for everything you do.
Glad to do it. Best of luck. By the way, I think it's kind of fun and neat to think about working for an amusement type or a theme type park. Obviously, I'm based in Florida. We have a lot of that here. It's a big part of Florida. I don't have any state tax. Thank you so much for visiting the theme parks. So it seems like that would be a fun place to working previously in jobs that I had. Those were my customers. I would go see them. I would go talk to the IT people, such interesting stories and what they were doing. And it's kind of a common thing we're also seeing where people were in a different line of work prior to this coronavirus outbreak. And now they're thinking, can we do something else with our life that might be different and might fit more into what the rest of the world is doing? The IT people still working pretty well right now. So this is a good place to be. And I like that people are thinking along those lines of bettering themselves and getting into maybe a role that might last a little bit longer than those pieces. Let's go back to the phones. The 702 area code. Hi, caller. Which name were you calling from?
Hey, my name is Courtney, and I'm calling from Vegas. How are you?
Hey, Courtney. Thanks for calling.
So I just called to say thank you so very much. I passed Core 1 the day after Christmas and Core 2 last weekend.
Nice.
And I just wanted to thank you because your videos were integral in that. Great
to hear. Is this one where you also took them at home, or did you go to a testing center?
I took them at home. Vegas, unfortunately, is very shut down, so I didn't want to deal with having to try to find a testing center.
I can't say that I blame you very much. Is there a particular goal or a particular reason you were working on the A+?
Not exactly. I got it from school, so I got a voucher from school.
Great.
So I did it. I lost my job back in November, so I'm just trying to get as many certifications and classes and school done as possible while I'm out of work.
Good for you. I think that's a great thing to do, and I think it's also a great thing that you're thinking about what to do with this crazy situation we all find ourselves in, and maybe on the backside of this is going to be even better than what we might think it will be. And as I often tell people, that's the nice thing about IT is that there's no ceiling. It's whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, however far you want to take this, you're able to do it. So this is just really the first steps into what will be an exciting future of things, I believe. So congratulations on getting those certs, and keep doing what you're doing, because that will make a difference when you're ready to start going into those interviews.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got huge goals this year. I got my A+ down, Network Plus is next, and then Security Plus. and then CISA, and then CCNA. So
all good things.
I look forward to watching the rest of your videos.
I appreciate you watching them. Congratulations on your testing, and best of luck this year.
Thank you. Have a good one.
It's one of those things, too, and if you're not aware of this one, I'll do first, congratulations on getting those certifications and your goals this year in doing that. I made a video that kind of speaks to this, not to be too self-serving on this, but I think it fits the last couple of callers that we've had, is that there's a number of people that have been in different industries that are now getting into IT, but they don't have necessarily any IT experience. And so if you go to my YouTube channel and you search for how to get a job in IT with no experience, I made a video just for that. It's 30 minutes long. It's a long video, but there's no filler. It is 30 minutes of tips, tricks, ideas, and thoughts about how you can best position yourself to get a job in IT, having not had a job in IT before. So that is on my channel. We will put it in the video description. See, it's where it worked out. Lori, make sure we put a link to how to get a job in IT with no experience in the video description, or just search for that on the YouTube, how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I give you those 4 elements of how to make that happen. You need a formal degree. Ideally, you need a formal degree. You need industry certification. You need some type of practical experience. The caller just prior to this had mentioned having his own Linux machine that he had built. That's practical experience. So, and then lastly, knowing somebody who already works there. And I talked to how you can get all of those things in different ways and how to balance those out in that video. That's why it's just so long. So it may be something that might help some of you. Let's go to the phone calls. 614 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Brandon. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Hey, Brandon from Columbus, Ohio. I spent a lot of time in Dublin through my IT career, if you can believe it. So good to hear from you. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, I've been going through the CompTIA world. I got my Network Plus a couple months ago, and I'm studying for A+, kind of the opposite. But I've taken the Core 1, passed it. Now I'm taken the Core 2 twice and failed both times, and I'm not sure what it is. It's just I know the material because I know on all the practice tests I have at least 90% or higher each time. But I don't know if it's just the test language or test anxiety. Do you have any other specific tips that you could give us without giving us information about the test?
It's certainly one of these challenges. I've had my own challenges with certain certification exams through the years. There was one I had to take 3 times to finally pass. It was literally on network cabling. I had to take the test 3 times to get through it. So these are just sort of these weirdness type situations you run into and trying to get through these, and you're wondering, why is this so difficult? This doesn't seem it should be so hard, and yet it's just, like you said, a combination of things. Maybe it is the way you approach the content. Maybe it's something with the test anxiety. Maybe it's the test itself, or all of those things working together, or we're not working together, as the case may be. There is a set of intelligence, a set of recon that you can do for the times that you have taken the exam. Because for those of you that have taken the exam and passed, you may not even realize this, but a full summary of your exam experience is on some paper, some digital paper now on the Pearson VUE website. They document what your score is, if you passed or failed, and they will tell you for all the questions you got wrong, which sections of the exam objectives were associated with the wrong answers. So if you got a lot of questions wrong that had to deal with security, then you will see that one pop up a lot in the after results page that you can download from that. So that should be the first place you go, is to get. Go ahead.
See, well, that's the funny thing is I downloaded those both times, and I rewatched all the videos, all my notes, all material I had. I even have the CompTIA book, the 1,000-page book for the A+, and I still, like, almost every objective that I failed the first time, I still failed the second time.
Well, you're consistent, if nothing else, but at least now you do have an idea that at least it wasn't completely different the second time. You are starting to narrow down the focus on, okay, here are certain topics. And I'm not saying that you should only study those topics if you're planning, when you're planning to take this exam again, because you should take it again. But you should certainly look at those topics with more of an interesting perspective of it. Another thing, I know this may be too late, or you may be able to recall some of this from the exam. You obviously can't walk out of the exam with anything. You can't write down anything on the exam that you can take with you. There's nothing, they don't give you a copy of the questions and answers that you took and missed. You have to sort of remember that yourself. So if any of you are walking out of your exam and you didn't pass it, you should immediately start writing down everything you can remember, especially the things that you know you got wrong, so that you can go back, because these things fade from your memory very quickly. So for anyone else who's watching, who is in that experience, you're like, I'm so angry. Instead of going to the bar and drinking, you should instead go to your piece of paper and start writing. You should go to a screen and start documenting and typing in exactly the things that you think gave you the biggest problem. Get it all down. Do what would be effectively a brain dump for yourself, and then go back and see the after report to see if any of that matches up with what you did. Now, of course, the next exam you get may be completely different. It's going to have different questions in a different order. There's a very large pool of questions. You're not going to get exactly the same exam again, but it might give you an idea of where you can focus your efforts. And it sounds like you've got an idea of what things are giving you the biggest problems. Maybe now we adjust, because we've done this twice now. Maybe it's a different book. Maybe if you've been using an A+ book, you've been using the one from CompTIA, maybe it's time to get another book and be able to work through it. The ones that I have worked through, whenever I start working at these, is maybe 2 different books really are a nice balance between each other. I would recommend going to Amazon. They allow you to read through the books on the Amazon website, the look inside option. Read through a chapter, or at least part of a chapter, to see if it's one that appeals to you. Some books are written for you better than others. Books are subjective, so find the one that works best for you, not the one that works best for someone else. The other thing that I think really helps me is being able to get as much hands-on as possible. So on the 1002 exam, that's a good one to go through. Understanding how to run all of these commands, understanding all of the utilities, spending a lot of time to be able to do that is all one of the most important things you can do, because it's really going to solidify those concepts in a way that a book can't, that a video can't. There's just something about the muscle memory and doing it yourself that puts it in a different synapse in your brain. So I think that's another thing to consider. And lastly, if you don't have enough of these probably already, and you probably do, but for anybody else who's listening, get as much Q&A in as you can. It doesn't have to be my practice exams. Go get practice exams from anywhere. But see if you can get as much Q&A as possible to get you familiar with the cadence, the style, the tone of the exam, because it's, in some cases, it's a reading comprehension as much as it is a technology comprehension exam, for better or worse. That's the case. Those are my recommendations. It's really just more blocking and tackling, probably nothing different than what you've done already, but maybe it's just a concept of mixing it up a little bit, Brandon, to get to where you need to be.
All right. Well, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, in fact, sort of like the last caller, I actually was employed because of COVID since March of last year. And through that whole time, I got a grant to go to an online IT school to learn about all these certifications, to get all the material for that. And doing all that, even without a degree or even any experience, because this is a brand new field for me, with the Network Plus, I actually landed a entry-level IT help desk job. So I think just, I know that's not what every employer is looking for, but, it took forever to get the job, but at least knowing the material at least generally helped me get the job. So for anyone out there who's struggling, just want to let you know it's not impossible. Just hang on and be patient.
Best of luck, Brandon. I think you got the right idea. You've got the right attitude. It's just a matter of making it happen now, getting that last exam done, and then you're home free. You don't fail at these things until you stop. So just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to pass that exam.
All right. Well, thank you for the info. It really helps. And the videos really, really, really help. It's a very physical way of seeing things rather than just hearing it.
Great to hear. Best of luck. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
That's one of the challenges, I think, with making the transition. And in Brandon's case, pretty good situation. He already got the job in IT. And we often say, we got a job at the help desk. Like I couldn't get anything else. Well, of course you couldn't. That's where we start everybody. Everybody starts at the help desk. I started, well, I started a pre-help desk. I started worse than help desk. My first job in IT technically was during college. I worked in operations at a supercomputer center. So I wasn't even help desk. I was watch the screen, and if the screen goes black, call somebody else who actually knows something to make the screen not be black anymore. And go get the printouts from the printer occasionally, if you would. Thanks. And mount a tape every once in a while. You don't know what's on the tape. You just know that that's the tape number you need to mount. It was definitely the dumbest job anybody could do, but I loved it, being around all of that type of computer equipment. The next job I got, still not at the help desk, was a remote support person where I would grab a printer, deliver it to a customer, plug in the printer, connect it to the computer, make sure the drivers worked, make sure that WordPerfect would work. That's how long ago this was. And then go to the next one. Again, the minimal amount of knowing what you had to know to make that happen. And then finally, the third job I got was finally the help desk. That was finally the point where things started to take off. You know, you get into a corporate help desk position, you're learning amazing amounts of stuff. If you get one of those help desk jobs, become a sponge and try to learn as much as you can. You're going to be seeing all kinds of technology everywhere. You know, ask the networking guys, are you coming in this weekend to do something? Can you look over their shoulder? Can you help them put stuff in a rack? Can you help them run a cable? That's where you learn the things, is from those folks. Pretty interesting to be able to do that. Let's go back to the phones very quickly here to the 615 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Hi, caller. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You might want to turn down your volume a little bit. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
We can hear you. Tennessee.
What's your question?
Well, my college was using testoutpc.com and that source for my courses. I took A+ course for that last semester, and I passed their exam at a 92% and got their certification. I just haven't taken A+ exams yet because I have to pay out of pocket for those exams. And I was waiting to get the money. I was wondering if you knew anything about their courses, because my college seems to be sending the IT people through all of their stuff.
Which was the organization you were mentioning?
Test Out.
Okay. I am familiar with that. And they do have their own certification, if you will, the Test Out certification. And a lot of schools use Test Out. I guess there's something about their setup that they have with having everything online. You don't have to have physical equipment. You can do the equipment in their graphical front end. They've got some Q&A. I've seen some of it's okay, I guess. They have their own certification, a Test Out certification. I have not found that their certification is entirely comparable to an A+. It's a good primer before actually sitting down and going through the A+ exam objectives, but I don't consider it to be quite as difficult as getting the A+. So especially if you're having to purchase A+ certifications out of pocket, that's something you should consider, is that you're going to need to study a little bit more to make that happen. So my recommendation would be, if you've gone through theirs, make sure you get the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you've gone through those objectives with a fine-tooth comb and checked out everything that's on those objectives, that you really do know it. Now, you mentioned having to pay out of pocket, so I'm going to direct you to the Google machine and type in CompTIA academic store. That's what you want to type in. The first thing that comes up is a store online for CompTIA that is specifically made for students. This is a discount site for anyone who is in a school or a class taking these, because the vouchers, for example, for A+, the academic A+ voucher is not over $200. It's $106 US. That's like a 50% discount for those vouchers. So all the vouchers are discounted through here. So if your school doesn't have discounted vouchers, they don't provide you with vouchers, or they want to be able to have you take the certification, but you have to pay for it, go to the academic store. Now, what they do when you check out, you have to give them proof that you are a student. This is a student discount. So you have to give them information about what class you're in. It used to be that all you had to have was an EDU email. Well, you can get one of those for $5. This is the case where they really want to see that you are a student and that you are actively in classes. So they expect that they will ask that of you. That's a great place to go if you're trying to figure out what to do. So those are my two recommendations: is make sure you've studied up on A+, because it's a little bit different than what Test Out is going to give you. And secondly, take advantage of these discounted vouchers, because those are really going to help you if you're a student. You can't beat the price. So hopefully that'll get you some of the things you need to get there. Best of luck, though. That's you're well along the way. I think the Test Out's a good primer. I think now you have to make sure that you really are studying from CompTIA materials or CompTIA related, something that's specifically written for the CompTIA A+ exam, not necessarily from there, but certainly. There is a limit to the number of vouchers that you can get on the academic store. I thought it was on the main front side of their page. Yes, you're limited to buying 4 vouchers and 6 digital products in a 6-month period. The total lifetime purchases of either product may not exceed 10. So that is currently that's what they are looking for. So those are the things that you need to be aware of if you're planning to get those. Back to the phone calls, to the 760 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Is the caller there? Are you on mute, caller? From California. Are you there? Test 1, test 2. Caller. Are you there? You know what? I need to hit the button. You're going to hear a beeping noise if I do things right. And I think it's the doing things right part that's the hard part. Now, caller, I think I fixed things. Are you there? What's your name? And we're back to where we were.
Hello.
Hey, hello, caller. What can we do for you?
Hi, my name is Martin. I'm calling all the way from the UK, Manchester.
Hello, Martin. I think you've called before. Thanks for calling.
Hi. Just 2 questions. First of all, what do you recommend using on router equipment specifically? We use a lot in the UK. We use Draytech. I believe in America it's Cisco and Netgear. But do you have any experience with Draytech? That's my first question.
I don't have a lot, because there is so much done with Cisco, especially in the United States, that it's such a focus. And in fact, for those of you that are interested in getting more hands-on is a good way to put it. But if someone's really interested in building out a kind of a virtual environment on their desktop with routers and switches and in stations and watching routing protocols and configuring Cisco devices, you can use Packet Tracer from Cisco, which is a free tool that will run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. That is a fantastic emulation environment for Cisco. You don't need any hardware. You don't need any routers. So if you're trying to get more familiar with routing and switching, and you're wondering what's it really take to get a router and switch set up, you will want to find Packet Tracer on the Cisco website. It's a phenomenal tool, and you don't need any hardware to make it happen. It runs on anybody's computer, so it's fantastic to use. But that's the one I think most people will use here in the States anyway.
Right. And the second question was, I'm very familiar and very experienced with Windows end user OS, meaning Windows 10, Home, Pro and education, but not so experienced on server OS in general, servers when it comes to domain controls, etc. Not too much. I was thinking of going for the Server Plus, but it is not so much content out there, especially where I saw that Professor Messer channel doesn't have videos, I think, for Server Plus. Is it, first of all, a qualification worth to get? And second of all, where do I get the right content for Server Plus?
The around server anyway, the way the world seems to be going certification-wise is more along the cloud side. I mention this because Microsoft, just prior to kind of the COVID shutdown, they had revamped all of their certifications to take the emphasis away from operating systems, pretty much, and put a huge emphasis on the cloud side. So they're clearly trying to move everybody to Azure. They're clearly trying to get everyone certified on the Azure side. There is some corporate reasoning to do that. I was surprised at just how much they sort of, I don't want to say abandoned the operating systems, but the certifications certainly have abandoned the operating systems. They don't care so much about you getting OS certifications as much as getting cloud certifications. I think these things go hand in hand, but I'm not the one building the certification program at Microsoft. One of the things you can do, though, whether you're going towards the Microsoft, because they do have some server certification still at Microsoft, you can still find it on their website, is maybe to either use it virtually in the cloud on Azure. You can do that, but you can also download evaluations of Windows Server software. So if you wanted to load up Windows Server 2019 on your own system or in a VM that you're running, you can download the code. It'll run for 180 days, and you can run it. It's a full-blown Windows server. You can set up Active Directory. You can put users and machines in your Active Directory infrastructure. You can manage those devices. You can even have them all virtual if you wanted to. If you have enough memory and hard drive space, you can run them all as VMs to make that happen. And that might be a good way to get a good primer for some of the things for the Microsoft certifications. Server Plus doesn't tend to go that deep into the operational side of things. They tend to stay on a very high level with the operating system and infrastructure side on Server Plus. And in the US anyway, there is not tended to be a huge emphasis or a need to get Server Plus as a requirement for a job. It's not that the content is bad. The content on the exam objectives is pretty good, but I have to build out into programs and certification videos that people will need to watch. And ultimately, our goal here is to get people a job or get them a better job. And if the people hiring people aren't asking for Server Plus, then that doesn't quite fit the requirements I need to be able to create a course for Server Plus. So I know it's sort of a chicken and egg type situation, but if suddenly all of the employers decide, you know what, everybody needs Server Plus, well, then I probably move it higher up in my priority list. That's the reason. It's not that the content is bad. It's just that people are not asking for it. And if that changes, I'll certainly change what I'm doing.
Right, but that's the thing. For me, this is slightly different because I got my own company. I run my own company. I'm self-employed. So for me, it's less about the qualification. It's more about the knowledge. In fact, I only hold the CompTIA A+ certification. But I know loads about the rest. I watched the videos, read a lot of books about it, but I don't need the qualifications that much anymore because I just need to satisfy my client.
Right.
And that is so that's just relating to knowledge. That's why I'm asking what you think about the Server Plus. When you say high level, do you say it's just about hardware, or I just kind of, there's very little information about the Server Plus because it doesn't seem too many people bother with it.
And I think that's kind of why, is that since employers are not asking for it, we don't tend to get a lot of people creating content for it. And that's sort of what drives content creators is, do people need this? Are they really in a position where this is going to help them? And if nobody's asking for it because no employers want it, then we're not going to create any of those things either. But let's pull up the Server Plus exam objectives. I'm going to pull up the latest ones. and we're going to get a feel for those of you that haven't gone through these before. It's a pretty good overview. Their domains are server hardware installation and management. So there is a big hardware component to this. And that's and I think Microsoft kind of has the market on server certifications, but I think they're trying to fit into a very specific niche in a data center, for example. Server administration's 30% of the exam. Security and disaster recovery, that's kind of server-ish, maybe. And then troubleshooting, which certainly fits into the server side of things. But you could see on the server, on the hardware side, it's things that you would commonly see in A+. It's kind of a subset of A+. Same thing for the server administration side, except they don't go very deep. It's more of a what are the volume types? What are the file systems? Well, that's sort of an A+ kind of question, but they don't go into configuring those. It's very, very high level. So that's why if I was going to kind of focus on a server certification, I would probably start on the Microsoft side. It's got more that's applicable to what people are doing in their environments. When you learn how a Windows server works, you sort of understand more about the way a Windows workstation works, except you can kind of throw in the Active Directory piece, which gives you an even better idea of how to implement these things. That's where I see most people going for server type knowledge.
Right. I understand. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your videos. And anyway, goes global, even to Europe.
Thanks, Martin. I sure appreciate it. Thanks for calling. It's one of those things, I think, that it just hasn't caught on. The Server Plus, anyway, just hasn't caught on. And it is one of those that we kind of have to make a balancing act on my side, which is it better or not better that I get that certification done as a video series? You have to keep in mind, of course, when I create an entire course, this is a 3 to 4 month effort with a lot of content creation, a lot of production that goes into this. There's the course notes, practice exams, and everything else that comes with this. So it could even go even longer than 3 and 4 months, maybe a 6-month effort to get some of these completed. So I have to make a good decision when I start this process. It's going to be 6 months. And I really don't have time to do anything else during that 6-month period. So do I do Server Plus that maybe one person has asked about in the last 3 months, or do I do this list of other things? So that's kind of where I come from that perspective. Back to the phones, 516 area code. If I hit the button right, there we go. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, I'm John Vasilico from Floral Park in New York.
Hey, John. Thanks for calling.
We thank you. We tune into you all the time. You're absolutely great. We appreciate you. I teach a class, an A+ class. And my kids were just wondering this morning and asked if I can call in about if you know anything about if there are any differences at all between this online version of the exam and the how it has been traditionally.
Well, of course, functionally, the content of the exam, of course, is identical. It's the same questions, the same answers, the same software, the same process, the same flagging of questions, the same summary page, the same jumping around from question to question as it would be as if you went to a Pearson VUE testing center. So at least the online, the actual exam experience is identical. The part that's different is everything leading up to that, because we don't really build our houses to take an exam. They are not secure environments. If you look at my desk, I could not take an exam at my desk. You have to have one screen powered on and connected. I have more than one screen powered on and connected here. You can't have anything on your desk. There can't be any paper that's there. You don't have anything to write with. You can't have anything there to write. You have to do everything online with your keyboard and your mouse. So there is a difference there than going to a testing center, because at a testing center, they at least give you that piece of laminated paper and a really squished up bad writing dry erase marker that you can use, which is why sometimes we'll tell people bring your own dry erase marker, bring a fine tip dry erase and confirm it with the folks out front that you can do that. Most of the time they go, yeah, you can use your own marker because ours are horrible. But at least you've got something to write with that's right there. And I find that's faster sometimes than using the online whiteboard or typing board that's there. Being Being able to set up your desk, though, in your home environment can sometimes be a big deal. That's sort of a problem because they want you to be in a room that can be closed off, ideally. So not everybody has that. I used to live in an apartment that did not close off. It was sort of one big apartment. Well, that may not be the best possible testing environment. If somebody walks in, this was somebody made this notice when they were just starting this up. There was somebody on Reddit that mentioned they were in the middle of their exam. They had a family member walk into the room behind them, realize, oh, you're in the middle of the exam, walked out, and the proctor failed them. Nope, somebody else was in the room, fail, and that was it. It was over. You didn't get that back. You couldn't take it again. You lost the money. You had to purchase another voucher and do it all over again. I think they were being a little bit too tight. Hopefully they were able to appeal that. But those are the things you have to think about. It's a different environment than if you're in a testing center. You have to think about, are the dogs going to bark? Is somebody going to bang on the door from FedEx? Is a family member going to walk in? Are the kids going to cry? There's other things you have to worry about. In chat room, people have even mentioned there are people who have taken this in their bathrooms because you can close the door and nobody can come in. They've taken them in a closet because you can close the door. May hope that was a walk-in closet and nobody can do that. So there's places where in your house you may have to think about this. Well, that's a little more stressful to have to think about how to set up your house to be in that way. But if you plan for it, and if you know that you have to do it, and it becomes part of doing the testing process, and you're expecting there to be challenges with this, even during the exam, then I think it goes a little better. If you aren't prepared for it, it could be stressful. But that's one of those situations where you have to decide if it's an environment that works for you. I would prefer going to a testing center. I would also prefer not being infected with a virus. So there's a balancing act for everything we do, I realize. That's the real challenge. The idea is read through the online rules and what the expectations are. Read through the experiences people are having in the CompTIA subreddit, and I think you're going to be fine. And you'll know not to cover your mouth in the middle of the exam because they'll yell at you. You can't talk in the middle of the exam or they'll yell at you. You just be ready for those things like, oh yeah, I remember I wasn't supposed to do that. And then you keep going with the exam. The goal, though, is focus on the exam. If it's going to stress you out and doing it at home becomes a distraction from your focus on the exam, maybe going to a testing center would be a better choice for you. But that's, I think, the important part for anybody is find the way that works best for you. And the online is absolutely viable, and I like that people are taking advantage of it.
Thank you so much. Those are some amazing points. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to also build on your point. A couple of my kids took it last year online when this had all first happened. And it was interesting to note the proctors actually got mad at them because I told them, you'll have these two papers next to you that you'll be allowed to have. If you're stressing out at the beginning of the test on that one port number, write it down. And they weren't able to have that. Sorry, the bell's ringing behind me. And I told them, maybe if there's that one port number you're missing, you could jot it down real quick so you don't stress about it. And they were totally flustered because the proctor didn't allow them to have a piece of paper next to them. So that's another big advantage of going to the testing center, I would say.
There is an online test that an online version of the whiteboard, so you can play around with the whiteboard before you go into the testing center. It's on the Pearson VUE website. I put a link in the last study group we did on Tuesday. And Lori, let's put a link into this one as well so that people are going to the whiteboard. There's a one you can use online, so you're ready to go with that piece too. So that's not another thing that's a mystery or weird. And maybe you can figure out how to work it even faster because you've already had time with it.
All right. Thank you so much. That's super helpful to us as well. Thank you so much, and keep on keeping on every day. We appreciate you.
You too, John. Thank you for the call. Good luck.
Thanks. Absolutely. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
That's something that might help you. People in the chat room, multiple people in the chat room have given the whiteboard out of 10, they're giving it a -5. They're giving it terrible, awful. I guess it's not the feel-good hit of the summer. Not what people were looking for on the whiteboard. But I think if you use it and at least do the practice whiteboard that is here online now in your browser, maybe you can find a way to work it best with you, because you can just open it up, click text, and type in any text you want to type in. But I get it that not having the pen, for me, writing things down is so fast. I can kind of do different things at the same time. And for subnetting, many of you know I have that method that really relies on a chart. And it's nice if you can just glance at the chart and you've got it. You can put your finger on the chart here and here. Boom, I know what it is. You can't do that online. You got to have it typed out. I guess you can point at the screen. It's just another couple steps to get to that point. Fortunately, there's not a lot of subnetting on the Network Plus. If this was a Cisco exam, that might be a little different. You might be doing a lot of that. So that's one of those situations where you have to make the decision if that's what you want to do. Maybe you don't rely on the whiteboard as much as you think when it's online. It's up to you. Back to the phones, the 504 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Joseph. I'm actually calling from Louisiana.
Hey, Joseph.
And I just recently took the Network Plus and passed that thanks to you and your videos and notes. And I have a question about the CCNA, or kind of like the network and cloud kind of things.
Okay.
I'm wondering, you talked a little bit about Server Plus earlier, and I'm glad that caller kind of mentioned that, because I kind of had the same question he did, where it was like I don't necessarily know where I want to go at this point in my career, but I feel like the things that I'm leaning towards is either the CCNA or some type of Azure certification, because I remember before all this all the world changed, I was talking to a Microsoft representative, and he was basically telling me the same thing that you and everyone else is that everyone's switching to cloud, and that they're hiring anyone with the Azure certification right out the gate, because they kind of want you in. They want you in their system because they're switching. Everyone's really focusing on AWS and Azure at the moment. My kind of question is, what do you think about the CCNA? What do you think about Azure and AWS? What do you think about network and cloud technologies? At the moment, like I said, I'm kind of stuck in between, where I should go and what I feel like doing. And I know, the Security Plus, which I also kind of plan on doing because it's going to change in a couple months. So I'm going to focus on that before anything, really. But my main question is, what about networking? What are the pros and cons of these two paths? You got any info for me on that?
Well, the good part, I think, of both of those, if you had those two to choose from, if you had a sort of a cloud and cloud administration side to choose from, or even cloud engineering, or you had a network engineering, network administration side to choose from, you can't go wrong. First off, those are very viable and important and useful types of paths to start yourself out or to continue your efforts in information technology. They are themselves highly sought after. The knowledge you learn in both of those is knowledge you're going to keep with you and go the rest of your career with. You'll be able to use that knowledge everywhere you go with everything you do. You can't go wrong. So first, the good part is it doesn't matter which way you go, because those are eventually going to converge for you anyway. And whichever path you take, by the way, in IT is your path for now. Everything in IT is constantly changing. IT is changing. Your interests are changing. What's hot in the industry is changing. What an employer like you to be able to do is changing. So what you plan on doing next is just what's next. It's not going to be what you do for the rest of your career. My career went from sort of field tech to help desk at the corporate level to network operating systems to Windows workstations to networking and into security. So I would have never thought back on doing the field tech stuff that I would eventually be in the IT security side, but it's sort of, that's the way the river kind of went for me, and I just kind of followed it, and it took me along the path. So find the one that you're most interested in first off, and sort of see what the interest is from the employer side. That's probably a pretty good barometer in your particular geography. Are they hiring more Cisco certified people right now? or are they hiring more Azure certified people right now? Maybe that helps you make the decision, because you really can't go wrong. And of course, there's your interest level in it too. If you're really, really interested in networking, it's something that really appeals to you and you kind of get it and you love the packets and you like going through the details, you like understanding how these routers and switches work, that's where you should go, because you will be able to use that technology wherever you happen to go. Now, obviously, on the cloud side, I think the person you were talking to at Microsoft was obviously very Microsoft-centric in their thinking, but he's not wrong, is that everybody's doing cloud. It is a huge emphasis. There's tons of people doing cloud-based technologies. The Amazon and Azure, those are the two big players right now in cloud, along with the sort of sub players in that area. Everybody wants to be a big player in cloud. Microsoft is crushing it, primarily because they've been able to integrate their Windows technologies into it so well. And who's going to do Windows better in the cloud than Microsoft? And I think the people that are buying those services think the same way. That's probably, I'm sort of not giving you an answer, because there's not an answer here. It's sort of a mixture of what employers want to do, what you want to do. And then, of course, at some level, these things are going to start to mesh together. You're going to need to know both of these technologies. And I think more than anything, the networking tends to lend itself towards all aspects of IT more than any other core set of knowledge you will have. If you want to go into databases, if you want to go into applications, if you want to go into the cloud, if you want to go into security, they all have a foundation in networking, some more than others, but they all have a foundation there. So if you want to do well with any of those, you're going to at least at some point need to circle back to the networking side of things to become more familiar with those. If you can start off with those, it becomes a nice jumping off point. So you really can't go wrong. That's got my perspective of the industry and where it is right now. These things tend to change very quickly, but you've at least got in your mind, either you flip a coin, either way, you're a winner. So that's what you should focus on.
Okay. And is the CompTIA Cloud Plus certification, is that like a more general certification, kind of like how Network Plus is different from like the CCNA, where CCNA is more focused on Cisco and Network Plus is just kind of a generic overall, certification for general networking?
Yeah, I would say Cloud Plus is even more general than Network Plus is to the CCNA. I think Cloud Plus is probably a primer, if you will, into cloud technologies, because I find that the Google, the AWS, and the Microsoft cloud stuff goes much deeper, much harder, much more detailed than Cloud Plus really could. I think Cloud Plus is really a primer, and probably not one specifically designed for technologists, probably for people that are just trying to get into the help desk, but their help desk really needs them to understand these cloud terms. So that's where Cloud Plus really fits.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. You answered my questions, and I kind of got a better idea of what I should be looking at.
Thanks, Joseph.
Appreciate it.
Best of luck. I think, and I don't think the people in the chat room are too wrong. Cloud Plus just doesn't have that same sort of like Server Plus. Nobody's asking for it. I've had people say, hey, going to do Cloud Plus? I'm like, the only people asking me to do Cloud Plus are people that are asking me if I'm going to do Cloud Plus. Because my follow-up to that is, oh, are you planning to get Cloud Plus? I go, oh, no, I'm not. So, okay, well, that helps. It helps me understand if I should be doing that. Is somebody asking you to get Cloud Plus? No, nobody is. Okay, so no, I'm not. I'm not going to do Cloud Plus. That's one of those situations. Now, I think that's one of the benefits I have of not being a CompTIA partner, if you will. This is one of those times where it really does help. Now, a lot of you don't realize I'm not a CompTIA partner. It's by design. I feel being independent of CompTIA provides me with some advantages. And so that is a good example of that, because they really would like all their partners to have all of the courses done. And they really put a lot of emphasis on their partners to create courses for everything. Well, I'm completely oblivious to all of that. I don't have to deal with any of those requirements. I pick the things that I think would help you the most. not the things that might help CompTIA the most. So I don't, at this point, feel there's any need to do a Server Plus or a Cloud Plus. There is some niche environments where it makes sense for you to get a Server Plus or a Cloud Plus, but those are very niche and very corner cases and certainly not mainstream. CompTIA partners, you have to pay to be a CompTIA partner. Yeah, there's some financial investment and some expectations of you from CompTIA when you become a partner of CompTIA. And there's some benefits they get as well that I don't get. It's like you can't buy a voucher from my website. I have to be a CompTIA partner for you to buy a voucher. But I also get to say whatever I want to say and talk about these certifications however I want to talk about them. And I don't care what the partners think of that because I'm not a partner. So that is by design. That's one of those situations where I think having that independence helps you more than it helps me. Do I think the Google IT certification is worth it? I looked through those exam objectives for the Google IT certification. They looked really good. They maybe go a little bit deeper into automation than they probably go perfectly into automation as far as Google is concerned, because Google's very coding-centric company. But IT is not necessarily that way. But I think it was a pretty good cert. I don't think it's caught on yet. I think it will. I think it will be more popular. And how I'm doing this, how I'm figuring this out, by the way, is really just going out to the job sites and looking at what employers are asking for. I think that is the best way I have to determine how valuable a certification is to the employer. That doesn't mean that it's not a valuable certification in the information it's providing, but it's a balancing act, right? I have to decide what's going to help people get a job or get a better job, which is our mission statement. I want you to get a job or I want you to get a better job. If I create a Server Plus certification, how much does that help towards you getting a job or getting a better job? Well, if they're not looking for it, maybe it doesn't help very much. So that's how I rank things. It's very simple. That's about as simple as you can get. That is my ranking. Does it help you get a job or get a better job? That's it. But it helps keep me focused on that's it. It's a laser focus on that particular thing. If it doesn't precede me down that road, we're not going to do it. I've had other projects I wanted to work on. I took a step back and say, this project doesn't help anybody get a job. We're not doing this. Let's do something else. So that's where I come from. That's my perspective of it anyway. And I think it's worked so far. If it stops working, I'll completely change the mission statement. But I think that's a pretty good mission statement. I think that's a pretty good thing to work towards. And if that helps me make the decisions that way, then I think that works for everybody. Do I recommend learning PowerShell, Bash, or Python first? You should learn all of them at the same time. I think if you had to pick one and you had no other choice, but you had to pick one, based on that criteria of getting a job or getting a better job, I'd choose Python. Python works across multiple operating systems. It's incredibly popular with the managers, if you will. It is one where they want to automate more in the cloud. They know they're going to be automating more in the cloud. They want to be able to make the cloud dance for them. Python makes the cloud dance. So Python is the way that happens. If you're walking into a Microsoft environment, probably PowerShell. You can't go wrong on either one of those either. Both of those have value to an employer. Bash is just something you're going to pick up anyway. Bash is just something that if you're going to do any type of scripting, Python, PowerShell, Bash is just going to come along with it. So don't have to worry too much about Bash, at least not at the moment. Now, if you run into an environment where it's mostly Linux and they want you to be a Linux administrator and you're handling Linux servers and talking to people on the phone like me who have questions about their Linux environment, then Bash is probably going to be a little more important. But it's all about what people are asking for. Do I think Java is still important in the job market? Was it important in the job market? Really? In IT? Java? No. Now, if you were in computer science, there was some value and continues to be some value in Java, not on the IT side. No, we never found any interest in Java. It does. We all hate Java. In IT, universally, and I'm not saying 99%, I'm not saying 99.9%, I'm saying 100% of the people in IT hate Java. There you go. So that's my summary. We all hate it. We all hate Java. And you certainly don't know how to need to do any coding in Java. That's ridiculous. And of course, we're ripping it out of it's already ripped out of our browsers. It doesn't even work in your browser anymore. So that's worthless. I guess you still have some viability on some mobile platforms on the Android side, but even that's moving off of there pretty quick. But don't do Java. Throw the Java book out, grab the Python book, and continue with your career, and you're going to be fine. Oh, just chills. The chills with Java. It is literally hated. It is not a fun environment to work with. It's not a fun environment to manage. When it was popular, we still hated it. So that's how that works from that perspective. That becomes a little bit more of a challenge. Let's go to the phone lines down to Cayocho, 786 area code. Hello, caller. Which name? Where are you calling from? Caller. I hear me. Are you there, caller?
I hear me.
Well, that was great. That was fantastic. One of the things that you will run into is some of these older technologies through the time. You'll get them. Now, people in the chat room are also talking about JavaScript. Not the same thing. JavaScript and Java sound so similar to each other. Completely different technologies, completely different things that they do, completely different usefulness, happen to share a name a little bit. So Java, a programming language. If you're in IT, you don't want to be a programmer. Not interested in being a programmer. It's not your thing. It's a computer science thing. JavaScript is how we automate things in a browser. Every website you go to has JavaScript in it. And even then, you still don't need to know a lot about JavaScript because you're not doing any development work in JavaScript anyway. Yeah, it's kind of a pain that we've shared that name between the two. But JavaScript, a perfectly viable, extremely useful automation technology that programmers use to make our browser front ends work better, and continues to be popular and work fantastically today. Java, not the same thing. And from an IT perspective, you don't need to know about it. You just have to be, you just probably will have to understand how to get it running in your browser or standalone so that you can run some legacy apps that never got migrated over into something newer. That's where you will run into Java, which, by the way, only makes you hate it more. So there's the benefit between those and having that functionality. Hopefully I haven't shied you away too much on Java, have I? Yes, I have. That's good. All that time you should have put into Java, you should be putting into Python anyway. You should be putting into PowerShell. You should be putting into one of those two things. You should be putting into cloud technology. You should be putting into networking. You should be putting into packet tracer. You should be putting into Wireshark. Those are things that will get you a job or get you a better job. So that's my perspective of those. Make it automate, make it do things behind the scenes. You should be doing the Docker. You should be doing the PowerShell. Find the popular named things. That's what you should be doing. And do what I do. Go through the job postings. Go out to Dice. Go out to LinkedIn Jobs. Go out to these job sites. See what people are asking for. See what people are asking for help desk, for network administrator, for Windows administrator, for Linux administrator, for cloud administration. Just see what they're asking for. Make a spreadsheet. Say, wow, this one comes up a lot. I should probably know something about that. That's your best way to know what the hot technologies are right now. It really is a valuable tool, is to see what are people asking for. And we often dismiss I think for some reason we often dismiss job postings as something that was built in a vacuum that doesn't have any application towards the actual job. But in reality, the people hiring for the job are the ones that created those job requirements. So you can not like the process, but that's not who you should be hating. It's okay to hate the game, but the player is the one that put together the list of things that you need to know, and that's what that valuable piece is that's out on those job posting sites. So make sure you know what people are looking for. If you're ever in that place and trying to figure it out, that's where I go, and that's where you should go too. Do I think programming and networking is more easier than regular programming? I have no idea what that means. I don't think programming in general is something you should be doing, period. So there's programming. Programming, let me set the tone. Let me set the page here for what I mean by programming. Programming is a thing that application developers do to build an application that's going to run in a browser, on a mobile device, on a Windows desktop, on a Linux machine. They're building applications. That is not where any of these certifications I work with, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or anything in IT, none of that has anything to do with programming. We don't do programming in IT. There's just not enough time in the day. Programming is its own science. It's incredibly complex. It takes years of work to be able to even become somewhat useful on the programming side, at least really know your stuff. So programming is computer science. That's the computer science side. There's a whole desk full of people back there in the back room or on that floor. They write the apps. Those aren't the IT people. Over on the IT side, we're taking care of the network. We're building out the servers. We got the cloud technologies running. We're monitoring those systems. We're securing those systems. We're making sure our data is safe. That's the IT side. We don't do programming. We do scripting. We do automation. That's not programming at all. So when I talk about learning Python, that's not programming. Technically, I know that's programming. If you had to put all of that into a very broad, people call that Python programming. It's not programming, though. Programming's the application, guys. I'm talking about automation. And it's really scripting. That's what we mean when we say scripting. Scripting and automation. That is IT. And you should absolutely know how to do that. You should know how to do it with Python, with PowerShell, with batch files, with shell scripts. Know how to do it. Knowing that makes your job easier, makes you more marketable, makes you have a better work environment, and it makes everything you're doing so much easier. It'd be really, really useful to have that there. Well, that brings us to the end of, we went a little bit of overtime there, but I think we've kind of worked through the process of those and had all of those. That will at least get you to where you might want to think of maybe coming back next month and doing more Core 1 and Core 2 A+ Q&A, because we're going to have another one ready to go in February. Feel free to check our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. If you liked what you did here, if you enjoyed and you got something out of this, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button. It actually does go a long way in my conversations I have with the folks at YouTube. There's a reason that content creators always ask and beg for that, because it really does help. So if you're so kind enough to do that, it doesn't cost you anything, and it sure helps us a whole lot. So we really do appreciate it. Come on back, and next week, we're doing Network Plus and Security Plus study groups. We'd love to have you come back to that and do some more of those too. We've got all of those ready to go. I should probably work on that Q&A this afternoon. That gives me something to do. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everyone.